I call this public meeting of the Eagle Mountain Saginaw Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present and that this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. We do have a quorum, including Dr. Tolbert, who is joining us by telephone. So welcome, Marilyn.
Thank you.
And she will be participating with that. If you recall, she's having some surgery coming up in the week, so she's out due to those reasons. The first item on the agenda is individuals desiring to address the board regarding a specific item on the agenda or to address the board in general. We have 13 speakers signed up tonight. They have already been told this, but I'm going to read it on our behalf. Thank them for coming tonight to share your opinion. A few rules of order regarding the public comment portion of this meeting. According to board policy, each speaker has up to 3 minutes to speak. The clock will be on the overhead there above your head on the TV screen, and it'll start when you begin to speak. Donna Webb is our timekeeper, and she will remind you if you've exceeded your time. When necessary for effective meeting management or to accommodate large numbers of individuals wishing to address the board, the presiding office may make adjustments to public comment procedures. Under these adjustments, every individual willing to speak will be given no less than 1 minute. Tonight, we're given 3. We have our board secretary, who I mentioned is going to be holding up the time card when your time is expired. The board may not ask or answer questions or make any comment regarding public comments not associated with posted agenda items. The board may respond with specific factual information or existing policy may be furnished in response to inquiries on a posted agenda item. Please note that to comply with FERPA laws on student privacy, you may not mention a student by name. Additionally, according to board policy, you may not make derogatory comments about any individual staff member, either by name or title. Should you need to file a complaint, you may do this through our formal grievance process outlined in board policy. And with that, Dr. Tabby, do you have the first speaker?
The first speaker is Don Reynolds.
Welcome, Don.
Good evening, President Newcomb, Dr. Cheswell, board members, and leadership team. Henry Ford is quoted saying, "When everything seems to be going against you, remember that the airplane takes off against the wind, not with it." I think everyone will agree that 2020 is a year that will never be forgotten and has challenged us in ways we've never imagined. However, in spite of the challenges that have come our way, you as leaders of EMS ISD have held firm to your beliefs in teachers and students and have worked hard to ensure the safety of all stakeholders. I come before you tonight to offer words of thanks. Thank you for taking the necessary steps to keep everyone safe. Thank you for weighing all options. Thank you for listening, and thank you for your time. Your work does not go unnoticed, and it is appreciated. I also want to thank you for the raise that was given to us this school year. In times of turmoil, it is often easy to just tread water and keep the status quo. However, you continue to make EMS ISD a district where teachers want to come and stay. The raise in pay and the increase in the contribution of the district medical premiums does not go unnoticed. It was not expected, but it is greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
The next speaker is John Abbotshan.
You know, I did not see the time coming.
I didn't either.
Deal, so.
Up here.
It is up there?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Well, I can't see that.
Okay.
It was there last time. Sorry.
Just 1 second, Mr. Abbotshan. Debbie, do you mind letting him know to turn that on? We'll go ahead and start. It's fine.
Yeah,
Just
go ahead.
for-
Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Dr. Chadwell, EMS School Board, thanks for letting me talk. 15 years ago, I stood this podium. May not have been as nice a podium, but with Coach Daughtry accepting the athletic coordinator and head football coaching job. And I've gotten to raise a family here. I've gotten to be a part of an incredible community. And as big as we are, it's still a unique and special place. And in 2002, when I came on as a math teacher and position coach, and when I accepted the head coaching job into today, this room has always taken care of our kids. And I know that leadership and those things right now, the direction is arbitrary. Finding it is making decisions and handling the responses. You guys are doing awesome. I support you. The Abbotshan clan was ready to come in droves to go back to school. We understand the decisions that have been made, but we greatly support going back to school. Thank you very much. Oh, and thanks for the raises too, so that was good.
There you go.
The next speaker is Jerry Lukens. No? The next speaker is Scott Knipp.
Welcome, Scott.
Well, here we are again, and thank you for the opportunity to speak again. And I only hope that this time the outcome is a little better. I'd like to just take a moment to give you an image of what in-person learning, the return to in-person learning looks like. This isn't a hypothetical, it's not a what if, this is actually what happened. Cherokee County School District, which is north of Atlanta, Georgia, got quite a bit of negative press a few weeks back when their students returned to in-person learning on August 3rd. And several of the media outlets ran images of looked like high school students crowding the hall, no thought of social distancing, masks weren't to be seen, neither were face shields. So it was kind of portrayed as the horror story that would be rampant everywhere when in-person learning resumed. It's a really good comparison for us because this is a district that serves about 41,000 students, 6 high schools. It's really double what EMSISD is. And when they opened on August 3rd, that was what the images were on the media. However, they've been reporting their COVID case counts every Friday. As of last Friday, they do have some cases. They have 89 students and 14 teachers who've been tested positive for COVID. When you do the math, out of roughly 42,000 people who are going to be impacted by it, you're talking at about a 0.25% infection rate, 0.25%. Suffice to say, the commute to and from school is more dangerous for our students and our teachers and staff than is COVID. Beyond that, COVID, from various studies that have been done here and especially in Europe, kids just don't seem to be a good vector for the disease for whatever reason. And it seems ridiculous that we don't shut down our school districts for the seasonal flu every year, which is much more dangerous to kids than COVID seems to be. So I'm just hoping that we don't need another emergency board meeting here in the sometime next week to throw a complete and utter chaos into everybody's lives once again. I think the numbers are in. The numbers for Tarrant County are all trending great in the right direction. And I think we can stick to the schedule, open on September 3rd for in-person learning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
The next speaker is Michelle Hill.
Welcome, Michelle.
As you said, my name is Michelle Hill, and I'm a graduate of Boswell High School, as many of my family members, and my parents have had a business here for over 30 years. Some of you are customers. I'm now a parent of 2 students at Boswell, and I would like to thank you for all that you are doing, because I know this is no easy task. And Dr. Chadwell, I would like to thank you for listening to me about senior night and making that happen. That was awesome. I come here today to talk to you about Pure Gold for the upcoming football season, if we have one. Many of you may not know how hard this team works year-round. The week after they get out of school, they start practice. They have 2 days, football, competition, spring show, and tryouts. They get 2 weeks off in May, and that's it. They hardly get the recognition that they deserve. They were told at first that they could not be at the game but show up at halftime to perform and then leave. That was clearly unacceptable. Now they've been told they can sit in the visitor stands away from everyone else, and that will allow band to have only 50 members in their normal seating. That is very unfair and discriminate against the dance team. Banishing them to the other side of the field away from their school and the band that they work with. True Gold has nice, cushioned, expensive chairs. Why can't we utilize that spacious track and put 39 girls safely on the end by their band? Everyone is having to make concessions, so the Blue Crew, cheer, trainers, they can all as well. We can share the track. All the students have lost and are already losing so much. Do not crush these girls and sit them away from everyone else. I'd also like to address the issue of the dance team and band having to leave after halftime. Why? Are all the other students' organizations having to leave as well? What is good for one is good for all. They will have already been there for half the game, and now you want them to leave when they have been included in the count. It makes zero sense and very unfair. It breaks my heart to hear band kids are quitting over this. We teach our kids equality, but that is not what is being done here for them. They are all only getting half of their season, and now you want to take away half the games as well? I understand this is all depending on if we have a football season. I made a vow to my senior that I would fight for everything for her to have the best year we can have. I have only ever taught my children that we do not give up in the face of adversity. We dig deeper and we come out stronger. I hope that you guys think about all of these things and we can figure out a way to adapt and do everything we can to show these students how much we care and will do for them. It may not be the perfect situation, but we can make it amazing for them in some ways. Show them that not all is lost. Thank you guys for hearing me out.
Thank you, Michelle.
The next speaker is Daniel Bennett.
Welcome, Daniel.
Howdy. Daniel Bennett, 408 Pemberton, White Settlement, Texas. Good to see you again, President Newcomb and the board. Mr. Shadwell, how are you, sir? I'm here tonight to bring to your attention, there was a letter sent out of Austin, Senator Nelson, J. Nelson, District 12. One of the board members from Tarrant Appraisal District went to her committee back in February and provided data to her committee showing the disparity between the number of protests in Tarrant County relative to all the other incoming counties, Harris, Travis, Bexar, and Dallas. And we're about 6 times more in terms of protests than these other counties. Well, Senator Nelson sent the letter to the chairperson of TAD and CC'd the board members, asking to look into this matter. Her committee has the charge of oversight on the appraisal districts and statutory language on bills affecting these 51 districts that appraise mass appraisal in Texas. Excuse this mask is taking away my, give me a second. All right, TAD received this letter on May 11th, and on June 5th, during the TAD board meeting, which was the last one we just had was August 14th. On June 5th, they had a vote to go forward with getting some RFPs to investigate, not the fact that the software was poorly implemented, which is a given fact, and you guys are $200 million short in 2015. You know how it affected your district. I don't want to rehash old news. But what she wants to know is, has the software been fixed? They lack 600 tenants within that software to meet state minimums. And back in October of last year, that particular software package was sold from Thomas Reuters to Harris Government, and they stopped supporting that software. So that's a Toronto-based company. So I wonder even if the software is SB2 compliant. So Senator Nelson, what she wants to do is make sure that the software that Tarrant Appraisal District uses is not affecting abnormally high appraisals, protests, and to make sure that it functions per state law. And that's one of the immediate needs right now facing the board. And I know we just went through 2 recalls. I'm not sure if you got the email. We're lacking 2 board members now. So this to me is very important. and I want to make sure your board is aware of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you. Next speaker is Mike Schroeder.
You can take it off while you're talking if you'd like.
Okay,
Welcome, Mike.
okay, thank you. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this or addressed a school board in my life. And what prompted me to do this was the last meeting that was undertaken. What I didn't understand about that when I listened to some of the speakers was, as far as I was concerned, there's an option, correct? You can either go back into school, or if there are valid reasons, which there would be with this virus, you can opt out and stay home. So I wanted to speak on behalf of, I think it was somewhere around the 18,000 or so that wanted to put their kids back in school, as opposed to, I think, the 3,000 that opted out to stay home. And I come to this from, I have family members that are in medical. So my mother just retired after being a nurse for 46 years. So she was in the intensive care unit of a local hospital. She treated COVID patients. So we know how serious the virus is. But the analogy that I come to is that if this board meeting or if this conversation was about nursing home folks or our elderly population, we're going to send them back to school. That's absolutely understandable. That would be crazy because that wouldn't be following the science. So children that are under 20 years of old are more likely to be struck by lightning than to die from COVID. So those are the facts. And what I don't understand about that, and even with that, there's no forcing for the kids to go back into school. The kids have the option, and there are valid reasons. People are susceptible to this virus. We know now, we have the data that's in. There is a big susceptibility to this virus that should be taken seriously. But following the science is not keeping the kids out of school when kids are basically at the same level that they have with the flu. So that's what prompted me to speak. And then watching, I know everybody's doing as best they can, but watching the education that my daughter went through IES, went through the district. She's now in her third year of nursing school. It was a great education. But watching what my son has gone through over the last 5 months, it's not, and it's not right. If there was science to be followed, then we're not following the science on this as far as I'm concerned. So that was the reason why I wanted to speak. Also, I've seen some things from people that I know that are teachers where you had classes being canceled just recently. That's crazy. That's college. That's not high school. Let's get our kids back to school. Let's do it safely. But let's not just, please, I beg you to follow the science on this. When you have kids that are way more susceptible to a car accident, it's 8 times likely, more likely than COVID, that a child will be killed under 18 in a car accident. We don't have all cars. If we started to make them all walk, pedestrians under 14 or 20% of all accident fatalities. This is crazy. So I appreciate your time, and I hope you follow the science. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
The next speaker is Jennifer McCormick.
Welcome, Jennifer.
Hi. My name is Jennifer. I am an ICU nurse at a large hospital in downtown Fort Worth. I would like to say that I really appreciate him cleaning this desk off. I'm sure it took a lot of training to do it. I just want to say that go off of what he was just saying, that more children die of the flu every year than have died of COVID. And they'll continue to do that every year. And we don't shut down schools over the flu. Okay. The recent decision for EMS ISD to start remote learning is an injustice to the working class, especially those who are considered essential and unable to work from home. I'm a nurse. I have worked 2 jobs during this pandemic, and I have done my part. It is time for educators to do theirs. I can attest to the COVID-19 numbers. and they have been trending down in the hospital for over 4 weeks. I do not understand how the districts had since March to prepare for this, and somehow it wasn't enough time. Those who don't feel comfortable working during this time need to find a new profession. I, for one, never had that luxury of working from home. Neither did many essential employees. The goal of the shutdown was to flatten the curve in efforts to keep hospitals from running out of beds and staff. Tarrant County has done just that. It was never the intent to eradicate this virus. It is time for Eagle Mountain ISD schools to open doors and give parents the right to choose. Over 650,000 people die annually from heart disease. We don't go around shutting down McDonald's. I have a 17-year-old and 8-year-old twins, one which has autism. Prior to COVID-19, he was receiving several services through the district to meet his educational needs. And since March, he has not been getting any of those services. This is unacceptable. His current teacher does his best, but he cannot read. How can he go click this link if he cannot read? He is frustrated and distracted by the constant chatter of children. This is under no circumstance an acceptable form of education. I am frustrated at the lack of support, planning, communication the district has shown during this time, and I'm saddened at how the school board members have turned their backs on these essential heroes during this pandemic. We have done our part. It's time to do yours.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Next speaker is Stephanie Tapley.
Welcome, Stephanie.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak today. I'm here today to urge the board to strongly consider keeping their commitment to at least reopen the schools on September 8th, earlier if possible. Aside from a child's home, no other setting has more influence on a child's health and well-being than their school. The in-person school environment does the following: provides educational instruction, supports the development of social and emotional skills, creates a safe environment for learning, addresses nutritional needs, and facilitates physical activity. For far too many children, shutting down schools is not just a risk-benefit proposition, it's actually a risk one. A trade-off between contracting viral illnesses they can spread to their vulnerable family members and teachers versus being exposed to hunger, child abuse, homelessness, mental health issues, and other forms of domestic distress. Extended school closure is harmful to children. It can lead to severe learning loss, and the need for in-person instruction is particularly important for students with heightened behavioral needs. Following the wave of school closures in March, due to COVID-19, academic learning slowed for most children and stopped for some. A survey of 477 school districts by the University of Washington Center on Reinventing Public Education found that far too many schools are leaving learning to chance. Adding to the already troubling observations, mix in the stress of unemployment of the children's parents or caregivers, the presence of multiple siblings with different schedules and differing curriculums, and the lack of educational background of these caregivers to provide adequate homeschool learning, you have a recipe for extreme emotional and mental breakdowns and a heightened risk of depression and/or suicide. This is the health crisis that we should be worried about. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Next speaker is Jerry Lukens.
Welcome, Jerry.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for your time. I don't have a grand speech prepared. I don't have the paper. I'm just here as a mom to talk to you from my heart. It's appropriate that I follow her. I'm a social worker in dialysis. I work for U.S. Renal Care. We have had COVID patients, and I have had very little contact with them, but if I didn't know they had COVID, I might have been exposed. But I have not taken it home to my families. Our family has not had to deal with it, and so it hasn't been a risk to us. My concern is my 12-year-old daughter, since March, she had been doing very well in school, and then since March, she has had one suicide attempt, another just about suicide attempt, except that we wouldn't give her the pills that she wanted to take to overdose. She has major depressive disorder, ADHD, generalized anxiety disorder, social anxiety disorder, and she has a 504. And she has been in inpatient twice since March and partial hospitalization programs twice also since March. And now she's in an intensive outpatient therapy program, which she is trying to balance with online learning. It's very hard for her to do the online learning when other people are talking. She has sensory issues. And so as a mom, I'm pleading for y'all to open the schools back up September 8th or sooner if possible, so that she can get the education that she needs. I've been on the front line since March. My husband is active duty military. He's going to be deployed in October for at least 2.5 months or maybe 4. And I just don't know how I can work and do remote learning with both of my children. But I do know that my 12-year-old has suffered mentally, not having the trusted peer, not having the peer interaction, not having another authority figure besides just me and my husband. We've had a lot of stress in our home since March. And so I firsthand have seen the toll that this has taken on our students' mental health. So I'm here to advocate for that. That's all I have. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Deborah Smith.
Welcome, Deborah.
Hi. I just came today to speak to the need for in-person learning. Remote learning is failing my family and family of many others as well. My children, my situation personally, I am a single full-time working mother. So I work during the day between 7:30 to 4, the same exact hours that school should be in session. While I don't consider school daycare, I do consider that my child cannot learn effectively at home with distractions and no one to force them on track. I have 2 children that are in the school system, a 7th grader and a sophomore. And I get, I don't know, 15 emails a day, all the different teachers. I don't even have time to read all the emails to see what they are. I have to pick and choose what I think might be most important to read. I feel like the children it's just not doing a justice to the children. They are not learning anything. The daily attendance methods that are being put in place, are not working either. I can't even tell you which ones my child clicked into today and which one they did not, because I am a paid employee. I have to work those 40 hours that I mentioned. So all I know is I heard a lot of YouTube, and I heard my computer crashed again, which we got a district laptop for both of them. So in short, I just want to say that, you know, I can't afford to keep going this route. It's a lot of undue stress for me and my family, and it is doing a lot of damage to my children's mental health as well as my own and that of the family. And I would hope that we go back to in-person September 8th as promised. If not, I will probably have to pull my child out of the public education system and homeschool them until there is a real, true, free and public education. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you. The next speaker is Donna Yates.
Welcome, Donna.
I just want to let you know that homeschool is not good for my children. I have a third grade and a 5th grader, and I've been in the school district for 50 years. And every day so far, I know we've only been on school for 3 days, but they've had like 2 hours recess off the computer, so they're not getting what they need to get. They need to be in contact with the teachers, hand on hand, seeing what they're doing. But they just need help. They cannot do it online because they're not getting what they need to get. So, I mean, I don't need the whole 3 minutes, I just need to let y'all know that my children need to be on contact with their teachers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Patrick Jacob.
Welcome, Patrick.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to let me speak. I'm not a resident of your school district, but I am a local elected official. I am the mayor of the town of Lakeside. And I'm here to talk to you a little bit about your appraisal district and what's going on there. I've been in regular contact and very involved with the appraisal district for the past couple of years. And I've spent some time with the comptroller's office. When we've had something happen just recently that is record setting for the state of Texas, and I want to make sure everybody knows. The appraisal district has a board of directors, and that board of directors is who the chief appraiser answers to, and that is where everything is set up and operated by. They are responsible for the appraisal district. The chief appraiser is responsible for how the district operates, but he in turn answers to the board. The board meets every other month right now, and it was a major election that occurs every other year in the month of November, December, in which each of the entities, based upon their taxable value, gets so many votes. So the event that occurred just recently, 2 directors have been recalled. That has never happened in the state of Texas. There has never been a recall of 1 director. Directors are normally recalled for, and a recall, we all think, means something terrible. But in this case, it can be as much as just coming to meetings unprepared all the time, or not attending the meetings at all. Now, we all live as elected officials with that requirement that you have to attend meetings, a certain amount of meetings. And if you don't, you're off the committee, the board, or the council. Well, we have no chairman of the board because one of those people that is no longer on the board as of this week, or late last week, Mr. Michael O'Donnell is no longer on the board. He was the chair. We do not have a chairman for our board. There are many issues going on with the board that it has to deal with in the appraisal district. One of them is an audit of the taxing software. That was requested by Senator Nelson and was approved by the board in a vote back in June. So I'm going to be sending out a letter across the board to all the entities asking that they concur with the board of directors for Tarrant Appraisal District having an emergency meeting to select from the remaining 3 directors a chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Patrick.
Next speaker is Leah Mason.
Welcome, Leah.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to address the board and to express my support of in-person learning as a choice for parents who feel that is best for their child. I won't stand here and read off percentages and data that support in-class learning. I think that data is clear. It's best to be in class to learn effectively for most kids. I won't read the county health department stats that clearly show a decline in COVID cases. What I'm choosing to talk about tonight is transparency. There were decisions made by this board that lacked transparency. You said you supported in class and we had a choice. Then you abruptly said we didn't. We want to know why. The 23-page document released by the Tarrant County Health Authorities obviously influenced your decision, but are we bound to this document outlines? I personally read it and have a medical background. I don't see that it's attainable or sustainable if we do reopen schools. So what is your plan?
What are the metrics that you are planning to use to allow or disallow kids back into the classroom, period? The personalizations that tell us we are all in this together, so let's make the best of it, aren't effective and don't make us feel better. We aren't all in this together. What happened was you as the board made a decision that was not supported by the majority of parents in this district. What will make us feel better is a clear plan. Parents are at their wits' end, administrators are strained, teachers are working as hard as they can possibly work, and we can agree that this is hard. It's the leadership's role to pave the way for success for every single child, regardless of that child's resources, parental support, and despite disabilities. And this plan that's happening right now is not working. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah.
The next speaker is Addie Baker.
Welcome, Addie.
Hi. First, let me thank the board for hearing our concerns tonight. Secondly, let me ask you to please bear with me. Speaking in front of people has always been something I've severely struggled with, but I hope that speaks volumes to my being here today. Every one of you is in the position that you are in on this board because you value and wish to uphold the importance of our children's education. Therefore, we can agree that school is one of the most important parts of our children's lives, and despite complicated circumstances in our world, we should still be doing all that can be done to provide our children with the standard of education that they are used to and need. I commend the steps our district has taken to provide remote learning. However, I still urge you for the option of in-person learning on behalf of my children, as well as for the parents and children whose voices are getting lost in this shuffle. I would urge us all not to operate out of fear, especially when it has such a dramatic impact on the lives of our children. Unfortunately, in today's world, it is all too easy to get caught up in misinformation and misconceptions. But if one looks objectively at the facts, from the CDC, for example, it states that COVID-19 primarily impacts the elderly and those with comorbidities. If you are under 50 years old, you have a 0.0092% chance of dying from COVID-19. Which brings me to my final point. I feel this is being made overcomplicated. Teachers, parents, and children who have issues with in-person learning should absolutely have the option and the right to stay home. Teachers, parents, and children who do not have issues with in-person learning should absolutely have the right and the option to attend school. We are all doing the best we can and trying to make the best decisions for our families. But what none of us should do is try to make other people's choices for them. As of today, the Attorney General of Texas has made statements clearly stating that schools cannot shut down for purely prophylactic reasons. The CDC even offers guidelines for safely continuing in-person school, even if someone tests positive for COVID-19. There is no reason to shut down in-person learning unless we choose to operate out of fear to the detriment of our children. As of today, children can go to restaurants, grocery stores, gas stations, churches, camps, and participate in sports. Not to mention there are no stay-at-home orders right now, so most families are freely interacting with friends and family. If it is okay for our children to participate in all the things I just listed, it must certainly be okay for them to attend school. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you. The next speaker is Chris Allion.
Welcome, Chris.
Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Chadwell, board members, for allowing us to be here tonight and address you. Knowing that I'd be last, I literally ran in the door at 4:55, finding out about the meeting to speak to y'all tonight. So I kind of threw away my prepared remarks and want to speak just from the heart for a minute. My student is a senior at Boswell High School this year. I have another daughter that graduated last year from Boswell, and I have a son that graduated from Saginaw High School in 2015. So we are at the end of our road here with Eagle Mountain EMS, and it's been a great ride. But I want to address you as a father tonight. Last year, I watched my daughter be robbed of a number of the traditional things that we all were able to enjoy our senior years in high school, such as a prom, those types of events, a typical graduation. And now I'm watching my youngest daughter start her senior year almost the same way. And I'm fearful because we've seen kind of how this has happened. It's been 2 weeks at a time. Let's go 2 weeks and flatten the curve. That was in March. And here we are still today. Our kids are not in school. They're not learning the way that they should be with teachers, friends, peers. They're not getting the social and emotional support that they need. Many of you know that I taught for about 18 years, the last of my years here in this district as a special education educator. Special education kids also need that as well. So I'm here to implore that you please consider giving us the choice. Parents, teachers, kids that are afraid to go back because of this virus that has not proven to be as deadly as we all feared at first, have the option of staying home and doing remote. You have provided for that. But what you have done is you've robbed all of us the opportunity to send our kids to school who want to be in school. My kids want to be in school. My wife is teaching. She wants to be in a classroom with her kids. If I were back in the classroom, I would want to be with mine. So I implore you, please hear the voices of everyone wearing green tonight. We're all here because we want to say go, reopen. Please give us that choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
Mr. President, that's our last speaker for this evening.
All right, thank you, Dr. Chadwell. Appreciate the input provided by the public. We will move to our operations report. We're going to get through all the reports, so board, bear with us. First is the quarterly demographic and housing analysis, second quarter of 2020. Mr. Templeton.
I think he's getting it.
Well, if Bob's still here, unless he's decided to leave and come back. hasn't he?
No, I believe that Mr. Welch is, I think, getting him.
Okay.
Yep. There it is.
Welcome, Bob.
Well, good evening. It is my pleasure to be here with you. I've done literally, I don't know how many virtual board meetings, and it's nice to be here in person. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here with you this afternoon. Well, this report is a little different. We've focused this report on giving you a picture of the housing market. So we do have the education report, which has the details of all of your active subdivisions. So you can refer to the education report, which is an attachment that we have sent to you. But this is just an overview of the housing so you can get a good picture of what's going on. I'm going to touch on the COVID economy, and it's just so crazy. You're well aware of what's happening. We saw incredible job growth for many, many years. The employment growth, job growth, unemployment rates were very low for a very long period of time. And then in March, we saw it spike up. In May, as we began to reopen, we did see some improvement in jobs. So we did see some return of some jobs. In May, we saw the addition of about 2.7 million jobs, and in June, about 4.8. Then we had a little bit of a resurgence with cases, and so businesses did pull back on job growth. And so we've seen a little bit of a softening in July and in August. The biggest hits have been on leisure, hospitality, retail, business travel, airline industries. Those have been the biggest industries that have been impacted by the job loss. But we literally are still about 14.7 million jobs below where we were pre-COVID. That's almost the equivalent of rolling it back about 5 years. There still is hope, though, that once we open up businesses, a big portion of those jobs will come back. But I do think we are seeing some acceleration of trends that are going to be very difficult to overcome. Just real quickly, looking at the unemployment rates, they peaked in May, and we were at about 13%. The Dallas-Fort Worth area did fare a little better, so we have fared better in DFW at about 8.4%, and the state was about 8.9%. You can see when we look at some of the different regions, you can see what Collin County, Dallas County, Tarrant County, that light blue was the 2.9%, which was May of 19. The dark blue is what May of 20 was. It was about 12.9, but now we know it's about 8.4 in the DFW region. Now we got a double hit. We've got also the hit on oil and energy. So it's somewhat problematic for Texas because a significant portion of our economy is tied to energy. The barrel of oil is about $42 a barrel right now. That's what it was today. That's still significantly below what is needed to be profitable for those new rigs. Now the housing market, this has been the real outlier in what we've seen in the economy. Now, when we interviewed the builders, we interviewed builders all across the country back in March, and the builders' first reaction to what we were seeing with COVID was they were preparing for about a 20 to 30% reduction in the number of houses to be built in the 2020 plan. And so we actually did a modification to the forecast based on that, and then we wanted to show you kind of what's happened since then. And this is looking at total sales across the DFW region. So the blue bar is showing you what it was in 2019. The orange bar is showing you what has happened in 2020. So we're looking at the first 6 months of the year from 19 and 20. Total sales are down. So the total home sales across the DFW region are at about 48,253. And a year ago, they were 49,000 to that same point. But keep in mind, April and May were very much restricted because of the sheltering in place, and we really did not see traffic or home sale activity in those 2 months. But then what happened was we saw a huge surge in total home sales in June. Actually, June was a record for home sales, and you can see that in this graph. But it created a real anomaly in the housing market. We actually saw a shortage of supply of existing homes for sale. So in March, normally families that have existing homes that want to sell their homes, put them on the market in March and April. We see that inventory lift in the spring. And we saw the opposite this year. We actually saw existing home listings drop. That added fuel to the new home market industry, and we actually saw new housing surge. Now, this is looking at new home starts and new home closings for the DFW region. We actually saw an increase of 15% for new home activity across DFW region. Closings were up about 12%, inventories up about 6%. I'm going to touch briefly on the multifamily side. So we are wanting to watch what's happening with multifamily. We have seen occupancy rates drop in multifamily. Now, we do know that the millennials and some of those multifamily dwellers that have been sheltering and working from apartment complexes, it has been very difficult for them because of the limited amount of square footage that they have. And so we have seen a surge of people that live in multifamily are opting to buy single family. They're opting to buy new single family because it's perceived to be safer, because it doesn't have anybody living in that. So it's it feels cleaner to them. With the ultra low interest rates and the shortage of supply, that's what's led to a little bit of a drop in the occupancy in multifamily and the surge in single family. Now I wanted to show you what we're looking at for the Eagle Mountain School District. This is the ranking report that we show you each quarter, and right now you're ranked 5th in the DFW region based on annual closings. And the annual closing number is 1,859. The annual start rate is 1,964. So there again, we're seeing the surge of starts, the surge of closings. We've got 964 homes that are in inventory. Now, inventory is 3 components. It is homes that are under construction, it's model homes, and finished vacant inventory. So those are the 3 pieces that make up that inventory number. So the builders have been working real hard to get homes under construction and to make up for that little bit of shortage of starts that happened in March. Now you have 1,856 vacant developed lots, and you've got about 16,072 futures. Futures are preliminary plats, future phases. And so we know that you've got plenty of VDL and futures for the housing market to produce about 2,000 homes a year for almost 20 years, or 10 years, excuse me, almost 10 years. Now I wanted to show you the change. That first column is what the annual start rate was a year ago. A year ago, we were building 1,600 new single-family homes. Now, second quarter of 2020, it's up to 1,964. We've seen an increase of about 364. So we've seen an over 20% increase of new home start activity from where it was a year ago. So we were wrong in March when we thought that the builders were going to drop 20%. They've actually increased 20%, over 20%. And we have in our office, we've got a young lady that was in an apartment complex, and they did just recently buy a new single family home because they were both working remotely and they couldn't take it. And so there really is this trend of the millennials starting to buy a single family. Now, I wanted to show you the activity by your current elementary attendance zone. Lake Point has far and away the most new home activity taking place, 468 annual starts in Lake Point. Your second most active area is Comanche Springs with 305, and then you've got Copper Creek with 234, Dozier 178, Elkins 159, Chisholm Ridge 159. You've got multiple zones that are building very significant numbers of single-family homes. I can tell you with great certainty, you have record-breaking numbers of families moving into your school district. There's no doubt in my mind that that is taking place. And we're seeing that all across the state of Texas in our major cities. Here's the map to give you that perspective. The green are your active subdivisions. The yellow are the futures. We've got 34 active subdivisions that are building single-family homes. There are 10 future subdivisions, and of those futures, there is groundwork underway on 11 subdivisions that will likely be bringing on about 2,150 new lots within the next 6 to 8 months. So the development activity, they took a little pause in March. In March, they paused because they weren't quite sure how this was going to play out. And so they lost a couple of months of time, and now they're racing to get this development activity back on pace. Now on the multifamily side, we're tracking about 3 projects. There's roughly 100 units under construction in the district. There's about 580 multifamily units that are in the planning stages. That Avila, Fossil Creek, and the far north portion of the Chisholm Ridge Elementary Zone, the Avila is a new concept that we're seeing across the country. Avilas are single-family homes that are built for rent. They're not built to purchase. So it's purely it's almost like a horizontal apartment complex. But they are single-family homes, and their rent rates are pretty comparable to Class A multifamily, so it is going to be fairly expensive rents. This is a new concept across our clients, so we're going to be anxious to see what the geocoding results produce in terms of yields for students per house, per unit, but we are tracking these multifamily projects. Now, wanted to give you a perspective of our timeline because we recognize that August, September, October are going to be very dynamic months, very unusual than any history that we've ever seen with school district enrollments. Normally, for most years, for the last 20 years that I've been doing consulting, from the first week of school until snapshot, most districts would grow anywhere from 4% to 6%. That was very common. In fact, the reality is, most of that was seen about the second week of September. Usually when you got past Labor Day, you really had a pretty good idea of what your enrollment pattern was going to be. This year is not going to be the case. We're already seeing we're getting enrollment data on about 80 school districts that we work with. Some of them have already started. I know you just recently started, and we've got districts that are starting in so many different ways. There is not one pattern that we're seeing that's consistent. You know, we've got some that have started in person day one. We've got some that are not going to be starting in person until the middle of October. So it literally does range all over the place. One of the key patterns that we're seeing is, though, that when the in-person enrollment starts, there is a surge that happens when the in-person enrollment starts. And so that's the pattern that we're seeing. Now, we are recommending to our clients that we would wait to do the geocode. That's the time period where we get your student information and we match it up to their addresses. We compare it to, you know, previous geocodes, and we're looking at the yields of students per house. And that's the big building block that we use to build the projections from. We think we should wait to do the geocode toward the end of October, closer to the snapshot date, maybe even early November. And so we'll have a little better, little clearer picture of what the enrollment situation could look like, and then deliver the enrollment projections in January and February. In the past, we've always delivered those projections in October, November. But this year, because of the dynamic nature of the enrollment, we think it'd be wise to wait just a little bit. Now, we are going to be looking at, you know, facility planning in the fall. We're going to be looking at your high school attendance zone options in the first part of 2021. So in January, February, we'll start to look at those boundary considerations. But we will do the housing reports on our normal schedule. So the housing report schedule won't change. It'll just be when we do the geocode and when we do the enrollment projections. I know this was a little different report, just meant to kind of give you a perspective of the housing market, and I can tell you the housing market is doing very well. And it's the ultra low interest rates is one factor. You know, these are low interest rates. The other thing that was a little bit unusual is pricing did not fall. We did not see a reduction in home pricing as a result of the job losses. We also have not seen an increase in foreclosures. Normally, when you see the job loss that we've seen and the unemployment rates go so high, normally foreclosures follow that pattern, but we have not seen that so far because many of the banks and the lenders are offering forbearance, and they're pushing those payments. What we don't know is how long are they going to be able to do that. And so we're hopeful that if we can get back to business fairly soon, that we can stave off a surge in foreclosures. But the foreclosures would be the biggest threat to your property values, would be watching what happens with the foreclosures. But right now, you know, when you bring on 2,000 new homes a year, your overall property value total is going to be climbing at a very healthy rate just because of the amount of new volume that's coming onto your tax value. I'd be happy to answer any additional questions.
Questions?
This is my first board presentation wearing a mask, so I'm having to learn how to handle the fog of the glasses, the breathing through the mask.
We appreciate, as always, your report and the assistance you give us in these planning with the size of our schools and boundaries of our schools. So thank you.
Our team is like, we are hyped up, listening and watching and getting data, and you know, every day we're bouncing our heads around each other, trying to anticipate what are some of the trends. We do think this is a very unique time in history, that we are seeing the acceleration of trends, that some of them will be permanent and some of them will revert back. I think when we get a year down the road, that we will see a reverse back to a more traditional approach to school. But in the past, we had about 22,000 kids that were enrolled in the Texas virtual network, in the, you know, the online textual virtual network. Well, that was 22,000 last year. I think this year could be 150,000. But I think 2 years from now, it'll go back down to 30,000. So I think we'll see this is a outlier year, that once we get the vaccine, once we get, you know, some confidence back in some, you know, ease some of those concerns, that the enrollment patterns will get back to normal.
Thank you for keeping us updated on them.
You're welcome.
All right, we are going to cover reports that we have some action item later on. So the next report will be item C1. It's on page 54, the budget update. Mr. Shealy is joining us by phone here. So we've got a microphone over the phone, Mr. Shealy, and your nameplate sitting there so that we know this is your last meeting to join us, and I'm sure we'll have lots of good things to say about you. But right now we're hungry, so let's get on with the budget report.
Jim, on your end, it's not, you're not clear on your end.
We need to know how we're going to operate. We've indicated that could make a big difference in the enrollment. We also have a question to do on whether or not our operating model is going to be consistent during the year. On the expenditure side, we believe there are going to be substantial deviations from normal spending patterns. Whether those deviations will result in overall changes in expenditure levels is unclear, but we definitely know that there are going to be some deviations from normal process, which makes it hard to monitor as we go through the year, but it's also going to require that we do monitor those expenditures constantly through the year. I want to talk a little bit about the future. The legislature is going to face a very challenging session this spring. They have never had to deal with a deficit of this magnitude. This is historic. School finance, funding of TRS, funding of ERS, and funding for health and human services constitute 75% of the state budget. With the shortfall that they're looking at, it is almost impossible for them to balance the budget without looking at the expenditures in these areas. One source of money that they have talked about has to do with fund balances that have been built up by several districts over the years. These are fund balances that in the eyes of the legislature, they consider to be excessive and unnecessary to maintain stable operations and address unusual fluctuations in operations. In Texas, total funds in ISD balances is approximately $25 billion and growing. There is a strong possibility that the legislature will consider supplanting state school finance obligations with fund balance used to fill that gap. Because we have strived to maintain a reasonable and necessary fund balance, I do not believe any action in this area will impact Eagle Mountain Saginaw ISD. Having said that, legislators in both parties and in both the Senate and the House have vowed there will be no reduction in school funding. They have also vowed there will be no increase in property taxes. In fact, property tax rates are set to decrease substantially over the next 2 years. This is going to put a greater burden on the state, which I believe means that they're going to look very hard at using fund balance. At this point in time, I'd like to go through the slides on the PowerPoint presentation. And that is beginning on page 55 of your board packet. Page 56, final assumptions. Bob Templeton, who was just on, has always been accurate in forecasting our enrollment. His modified numbers did show a slowdown that may or may not occur, depending on the final numbers we see because of housing growth, but also depending on the mode of operation that we have. We have used Bob's modified numbers. That is one of the areas that needs to be monitored very closely, and is going to take a significant amount of cooperation between the various departments in the school district. Go to the next page, page 57. Enrollment and attendance rates are the primary factors that generate money, revenue for the district. We will work to maximize both of these factors to cover the costs of operations. Depending on the mode of operation, whether it's in distance or in person, the challenges are going to be to enroll and engage these students. We believe we've developed procedures to reach out to the children in our community to maximize these numbers. Page 58. TEA has published rules and then changed them based on direction from the governor or from the attorney general or from state and local health departments. One or more substantive changes has been made by the attorney, or one of the more substantive changes was made by the attorney general at the end of July when he ruled that counties had no authority to close schools presumptively to limit the spread of COVID-19, but could only act after the fact when their decisions and their actions are limited. That pronouncement changed TEA's rules and forced districts to make last-minute adjustments to operations. I do not believe this is going to be the last time that happens. There have been other changes in procedures or changes in the interpretation of these procedures that have had an impact on funding and our operations. This budget is based on current rules and our interpretation as we know it. However, changes and procedures, once again, are going to require constant monitoring of this year's budget. Going on to page 59. The district has in recent years made a commitment to compensate employees at market rates of pay and to use our compensation schedule to attract and retain high-quality personnel. This year's budget continues that commitment. The 2% raise is at or above most of our neighbors. The final budget also includes minor modifications in the 0, 5, and 10-year experience levels to make us more competitive in the market. On page 60, the district has also increased its contribution for insurance by $25 a month. This is the second year in a 3-year process to increase our contribution to $300 a month, which puts us in line with neighboring districts. The partnership with Be Well suffered due to the pandemic. Prior to the onset of COVID-19, we were tracking ahead of projections. As with most organizations, we're working on ways to increase participation back to former levels and provide additional services, such as testing for COVID-19 and COVID-19 antibodies. Overall, the program has been beneficial, but we are modifying the program to be cost-effective for the district and its employees. On to page 61. As noted, the budget in this slide, the budget does not include expenditures for COVID-19. The actual need in this area is largely dependent on the form of curriculum delivery utilized by the district. Differences in operating procedures will impact spending patterns, and those variances can also be used to supplement costs incurred due to the pandemic. As noted on the slide, we do not anticipate any assistance from the state of Texas, as the state has its own budget issues, nor do we expect any assistance from the federal government. It appears that may happen, but that is not included in the budget. If we do receive any assistance, that will ease the pressure on the budget and improve our financial position. Going on to the next page, the proposed budget does result in a surplus. Given the uncertainty of operations in the upcoming year, once again, we're going to have to continually monitor the budget on at least a monthly basis. I would expect reports to come to the board showing budget to actual expenditures and variations that we are seeing in expenditure patterns. One thing I will note, in the past, the budget upheavals that we have seen have been on the revenue side. and they have included continuing impact for years. The problem with the valuation of TAD several years ago carried on for 3 years after the initial error. The shortfall due to the opening of ILT is still impacting the district. This is a different impact. This is on the expenditure side. These expenditures, if we get this pandemic under control, should disappear in the upcoming year and will not have a lingering impact on the district. So it's going to be a matter of making it through this year and assuming or hoping that this is not in play for the upcoming 21-22 school year. Page 63 includes the revenue portion of the budget. It should be noted that the total budget is up by about $5 million. INF revenue is up by about $2 or $3 million. And child nutrition has been a very difficult area to estimate because we don't know what the service is going to look like when we bring students back into school. Going to the expenditures page on page 64, I would like to note that instructional costs, function 11, continue to hover right at 60%. Campus-based expenditures, which is functions 11, 12, 23, 31, 33, 34, and 36, total $159 million, almost $160 million, which is 78% of all expenditures. The district is still concentrating its expenditures to the campuses and to the students. Salaries, although not reflected here, continue to account for over 80% of district expenses. Outside of direct instructional expenses, which is function 11, utilities, maintenance, and custodial costs, which is function 51, represent the second largest financial outlay, or approximately $22 million, which is 10.65% of total expenditures. The majority of this amount is embedded in utilities. There have also been several one-time expenditures necessitated by the pandemic. These have been occurred in the current fiscal year, the 19-20 fiscal year. The 2021 fiscal year should concentrate on continuing supplies needed for the operation of the district. The surplus budgeted based on this budget is $668,047. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Sheila, I have one. Going back to slide 61, that slide dealt with the COVID expenditures. And you mentioned that we did not assume or anticipate any reimbursement from federal or state government. So the money that the federal government gave to, or the state government gave to the schools, can you explain again what the state is doing with that? How they're not passing it through to us?
Right. If the state owed us $50 million and $1.4 million was designated for EMS, they reduced their contribution to $48.6 million. So what they said was they are ensuring that we get our full funding, but we get no more than what we originally budgeted.
And do we know how much, it says the final budget includes additional funding, but I think you mean additional expenses for COVID-19. Do we know how much did you put in the budget for COVID-19 related expenses? Just not a breakdown, just an overall amount.
Right. In the current year, we spent about $4 million. I put about $750,000 in the upcoming budget.
Okay, so $4 million is in the 19-20 budget, and $750,000 is in the budget we're going to approve tonight.
Correct.
I know Mr. Welch is going to go over a budget amendment that I think will clarify some of those changes here in our next report. Does anybody else have a question on the budget? We will be having a hearing and discussing it tonight. All right, Mr. Shealy, thank you.
Thank you very much.
See you at
Thank you so
7.
much.
All right. Next is a budget amendment, Mr. Welch.
All right, good evening, trustees.
Good evening.
So as you mentioned, we have a budget amendment tonight as we conclude the 2019-20 fiscal year. That amendment will come in a later agenda item, but at this time, I'll give you a brief review of the amendment. In your board book, we provided 2 reports. The first report is a description of the actual amendments and their impact to the various revenue and expenditure accounts. I don't know if you've seen it. I mean, it's similar to what you've seen before. We just lined it up where you can see the net impact. Then on the second report, that presents our final amended budget. It has both the proposed amendments, as you saw in the first report, lined up next to the transfers of existing budget, and then what the final amended budget will look like. So overall, just to kind of recapping, when we go to build a budget, we understand that it's a living, breathing document, and it helps guide our use of our resources throughout the year. We do know that our world is dynamic, and our needs and priorities can change throughout the year, sometimes daily. And this was definitely the case for the 2019-20 fiscal year. We had 2 major events occurring during the year. The first was House Bill 3. House Bill 3 was implemented shortly before the fiscal year began, and the interpretation of House Bill 3 and the implementation of all the funding elements and the guidance and everything came from TEA throughout the year. So obviously, that's something that evolved, and our budget had to evolve throughout the year as well to coincide with that. But then there was COVID-19. That was the other significant change, and of course that changed the way we operate overnight, create a whole new set of funding needs and priorities. So the final budget amendment reflects the realities of the year from that standpoint. I'd be happy, it sounded like there were some questions, I'd be happy to address any questions regarding the actual amendments in that first report before we move to the presentation of the amended budget. Had a question about the...
Well, like, for example, the 4.8 million on page 68, where we're increasing the tax collections current. So we collected, I guess, a bigger percentage of the, we always estimate 97 or 98% collections. Is that due to that? And then on page 70, where the debt service fund, the current taxes go down, seemed like there would be a better relationship between that.
Yes, in fact, we looked at that very topic, and came to the realization that there's just some revenue reclassification on the front end, on the M&O side. Back when the original budget was put together, if you remember, we're in current year values being utilized in the funding formula. So that relationship between the property values and the state funding really has no net effect on our bottom line. And so over time, that adjustment was made, as you can see, but there was a difference in how those were classified on the front end. As the revenue went up, typically you'd see that we would see state revenues go up. But in this case, as we added in the local revenue, that's where the revenue went up, just from the standpoint of how it was originally classified. Bottom line, really didn't change from the standpoint of the initial amount, but that allocation between the two went up. And so that's...
that would make sense, except for why did the debt service thing go down by $900,000 in the amendment you're proposing? Yes. So did we not collect as much as we, or is it still that allocation between the two pieces from the very start?
Yeah, so the relationship between the M&O rate and the INS rate, I believe that the budget as it was adopted did not take into account the last changes to the tax rate, because really it had no effect on the bottom line on the M&O side. And so that reclassification happened during the year versus with the original budget, if that helps. But it did, there was a change in the, I guess with the tax rate at the beginning of the year, there was that change or adoption where they moved the, increased the INS rate. And yes, the collections did not hit the target that was originally put in place. And so that showed out on the INS side, but like I said, on the M&O side, it's the distribution between the state and local revenue that had to be adjusted throughout the year.
All right, then on the proposed amended budget that starts on page 72, is that where you want to move next?
Yes, sir. I'd like to just briefly touch on recap of, if you look on page 72, we did have on the general operating fund, it has a proposed amendment at the bottom there of 7.1 million. That's the increase to revenues, bring our total revenues to 201.7 million. Then if you look down at the bottom of page 73, was that 4 lines up, you can see a total of proposed amended budgets or expenditure amendments of 6.5 million, and that equates to a total amended expenditure budget of 200.8 million, and the resulting increase is to fund balance of $928,156. Just to clarify, we do anticipate that amount that would be part of the fund balance increase. We do expect that will be a higher amount, but it's all going to hinge upon the final actual expenditures. And as we've made expenditures in preparation for the next school year, there are various items as far as large expenditures that were made in this year, but because of when we actually get to utilize them or the timing of them coming into the district and getting expensed, those expenditures may roll into the next year and create a higher fund balance as of 8/31/2020. And then we'll have to bring it back and we'll look at a rollover budget amendment to move that money over, but into the next year. But for right now, we do anticipate that we'll see a higher number going into fund balance.
And that proposed transfer line on 73, that column, is that where we're just moving money because of the different way we ran school from March to May? Supplies increased. I mean, the net of it's only 42.5, but that's just reclassifying salaries and different expenses. Am I interpreting that correct?
Actually, there are 42.5 is an adjustment below the line. There's an equal adjustment above the line of 42.5. So ultimately the transfers should net out to 0, both on revenues and expenditures, and then and should have no net impact on the fund balance. Okay. But yes, those are just reallocations throughout the year of existing funds to other priorities versus where they were originally budgeted.
But as we add that across tonight, we're not only approving the amendments, but also approving transfers in the expenditure funds from 11 to 99.
That is
right?
Correct,
okay.
Sir. And then that creates our final proposed amended budget, the net of both of those actions.
So if this does create a temporary increase in the fund balance, it's just really a timing issue with some stuff that's going to fall into next year. Are we concerned with how the state may view that when they're looking at the fund balances to see if we need to contribute from that?
As you put, yes, it will create just from a timing standpoint, but I don't think from where the standpoint of where the school district is right now, where even Mountain Saginaw is right now, we're at a good level of
Is that
fund
a key
balance.
material for that?
We don't think that they're going to be targeting us for any kind of changes. We have a reasonable fund balance for our size district. It's healthy, but it's not unreasonable. And it's where we should be for a district just to even handle changes in operations. Is what we're dealing with right now, is the unanticipated. And so we're at a good level, and I don't anticipate that the state will be looking at our district from that standpoint.
And just to make a comment, a few years ago, we had to use part of our fund balance as part of strategically when we had cuts from the state. We've been building that back up, and we've been able to get into that nice level now for those that may be listening. We're at what the TEA expects us to have, but we're also, as Jim Shealy would say, we're not the community's bank. We're also very careful about not having too much in that area as well. So we're in a pretty good range. But in terms of the targeting, I think they're probably going to hit the ones that are a lot higher in terms of percentage of how much they're carrying. But we haven't heard specifics yet going into this next session, but it's something that's on our minds.
I anticipate the only real impact to us is that they may utilize that information to move one of our funding payments or one of our monthly funding payments that went at the end of the biennium. They may make that decision to districts have a helping us fund balance to move that last payment into the next biennium to help them make their budget. And knowing that the districts should be able to manage through that 1 month lag in state funding. So, but other than that, and again, I don't anticipate that will be an issue for even outside.
All right, and then the debt service and the child care, page 75 and 70.
Yes, sir.
It looks like I don't have any questions on that.
Yes, child nutrition fund, simply we made an adjustment for commodities and left the budget in place. As you can see there on page 74, that affects that adjustment to commodities that affects revenues and expenditures in the same amount. If we look over on page 75 of the debt service fund, that takes into account our changes throughout the year, being our new money debt that was issued back in December, as well as the refundings that we just did back in June. So all those adjustments are in there, and we are looking at about a $1 million increase to fund balance in the debt service fund, which is, again, as our debt schedule increases, then that's an appropriate adjustment to secure our fund balance and to make sure that we're in good shape going forward. So.
And then that premium in that debt service fund, the 17,128,133, that's in 7915 on your amended budget report.
Yes,
Is
sir.
that supposed to be in 7916 premium on seller bonds? That's where it is on page 71. It's in 7916.
It indeed is. So
It would be at 7916, right?
Yes.
It's premium, I guess that's the money we made on refinancing early.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And so if I can make that change, thank you, sir.
Any other questions on the amendment? I know you're letting me handle that math stuff. Okay. Next, we have a report. We also are taking action on this tonight on the property and casualty insurance policies. Mr. Welch.
All right, thank you. So on another action item later in the agenda, we'll be asking for the board to approve a recommendation for the upcoming term of our property and casualty insurance policies. We've been working with our consultant and broker, Alamo Insurance, to build a policy package that makes sense for the district. We continue to see escalation in the market for property coverage, especially here in the North Texas area. This area has a continued history of high risk of wind and hail claims, as we probably all have dealt with in our own homes in this area. Alamo, who is not commission-based, approached almost 50 carriers plus several of the large risk pools, and many of the carriers and even the pools indicated that they are not writing new policies in this area. So that leaves a void in the competition in the market, obviously. So on page 80 of your board book, we provide a summary of the options for the district's consideration. Our recommended policy package is that option 3 on the right column. has a total cost of a little over 1.8 million. And this is an increase of about 40% over last year's cost. And while that's a sizable number, and we obviously can attribute a lot of the increase to the market conditions here where we're located, the coverage is also providing additional value to the district. So one being, we did adjust our taxable insured values by 9%. This accounts for our increases in the replacement costs of our existing facilities, but also the new facilities that we have in the district that need to be covered, like Copper Creek Elementary. And then it also reduces our maximum exposure from $23 million down to $15.5 million as we move from a 3% deductible to a 2% deductible. And that obviously provides a very reasonable safety net for the district. So overall, we believe that this proposal brings the best value of coverage to the district, and we will be making that recommendation on the action item later in this meeting. Again, if you have any remaining questions regarding this item, I'd be glad to answer those at this time.
Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Welch.
Thank you.
We have two more reports that we'll be taking action on tonight. The next one is on page 125, Human Resources Report, the Tasb update 115. Next, we may not be taking action on that. Anyway, Sandra White, we're going to let you do both of them.
Okay. Good evening.
Good evening.
The Tasb update 115, we received it in July, which consisted of 70 new legal policy updates as well as 13 local updates. You received the vantage points and explanatory notes as well as the proposed annotated local policies. I want to highlight just a couple of the updates for the Tasb update 115, which has to do with Title IX, DIA, which is employee welfare, and FFH, which is student welfare, has lengthy proposed updates, which include the requirements for the process for sexual harassment complaints. We are currently working on the requirements that go along with these policies, including new regulations and new information that is required on our district website. Also in the updates were a couple of exhibits being proposed for deletion, including employee standard of conduct and notice of employees' responsibilities for reporting child abuse and neglect. They have just been moved and embedded into legal policy, so we're not getting rid of them. Tasb has embedded them into legal. Is there any specific questions that anybody had about Tasb update 115? I'll be bringing this update back in September for approval on these policies.
All right. Next is the Tasb policy review session.
Yes.
This was just a barrel of last year.
Sir?
It looked like there was a lot of changes that.
At the end of April, we had a policy review session with our Tasb policy service consultant, Tammy Jordan. This was a comprehensive audit and review of our district's local policy manual. The benefits of the review were to help us make sure that our manual clearly communicates our requirements and practices. It helped us to see where there were some inconsistencies and to clarify board or administrative responsibilities. It helped us to see that there were some policies that have not been updated in many years. After we spent 2 days with Ms. Jordan, then I have spent the last 3 months working with the leadership team and department heads on input regarding the proposed updated policies and in making sure that our practices are clearly reflected in our policies and regulations. In the information you were given, you were able to see the proposed annotated policies as well as regulations that have been updated or added to ensure we have procedures in place to go with the proposed policies. The goal of the policy review session is to restore the manual to optimal conditions and reflect the uniqueness of Eagle Mountain Saginaw ISD. Does anybody have any specific questions about the policy review session we did?
Just one quick comment. Just to let y'all know, as you looked at this, you may be thinking, why does this require an approval? This is something that really comes from Tasb. and something they request because of the substantive nature. There is not any legal requirement, I believe, for this, but it is something they request so that you have knowledge that they are going into these policies and reviewing them. So it seems a little different because quite often we bring you changes all the time for your review. This is just so large, they request for this to be approved by the board. So you have knowledge. Of course, you have knowledge because we've been communicating with you since mid-year last year, but this is just something that they require.
Right, and then after she begins work on it, Ms. Jordan, then I will be bringing it back, the new policy manual with all the changes between 45 and 60 days for y'all to vote on your approval of those if you so choose.
And I'll point out, the reason it's an action item later on, we're not going to be approving this large report that we see. We're going to be approving the permission to get started so that we're aware of it. So if you do have comments as they're going through it, and it's not a finished product, as I understand, it's a work in process. So
Yes, sir.
if you have a question on something you notice, please communicate it.
And if there's specific policies you'd like us to pull out and report on those separately, because there's discussion, especially if there's what you consider a significant change in process or anything like that, we can do that. We can bring them back to you in any manner. We don't have to bring them back as in chunks if we want to, so that it's not so overwhelming for one meeting.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
It is currently 6:36 p.m. on August 24th, 2020. The board will now recess for dinner and then reconvene in the closed meeting pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act. 551.071, consultation with board's attorney. 551.072, purpose of deliberating about real property. 551.074, purpose of deliberating the appointment, employment, or reassignment, duty, or discipline of an employee. 551.075, for the purpose of deliberations regarding deployment or specific occasion for security. And 551.082, considering the discipline of a public school child or complaint against personnel. Meeting of the Board of Education of the Eagle Mountain Saginaw Independent School District. The board is reconvening the public meeting on August 24th, 2020 at 7:34 p.m. and will now consider the subjects set forth in the posted agenda. Welcome everybody to our August meeting. Before we have the pledges, I'd like to ask for us to honor a moment of silence for Sam Merck, Boswell class of 1974, who in a long time, 29 years on the school board at Azle, Texas. So if you would just join me in a brief moment of silence. Thank you very much. At this time, we will have our pledges. Dr. Chapel, would you lead us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
All right, thank you for that. And at this time, we'll move into the action item portion of the agenda. The first is to conduct a public meeting to discuss the budget and proposed tax rate. And let me call us into that, Mr. Welch. At this time, on behalf of the Eagle Mountain Saginaw ISD, I declare an open hearing to discuss the budget and proposed tax rate. Mr. Welch, please proceed.
All right, thank you. Good evening, once again, trustees. Tonight, as part of our budget and tax rate adoption process, we have our public meeting where we invite comments regarding the 2020-21 budget and proposed tax rate. You heard from Mr. Shealy earlier regarding the proposed budget. We have posted the budget in accordance with state laws along with the notice of public meeting to discuss the budget and proposed tax rate as prescribed by the comptroller and truth and taxation requirements. Both were provided in your board book. As we presented at the July regular meeting and as can be referenced on the provided notice, the proposed tax rates remain the same at $1.04.6 or $1.0464 for the maintenance and operation, 45 cents for interest in seeking or debt service, for a total tax rate of $1.4964 per $100 valuation.
No, I didn't hang up. I'm going to.
Here we go. That is a 2.19 cent decrease compared to the prior year total rate. This is the administration's recommendation to support the proposed 2020-2021 budget and to maximize the district's funding from the state. The proposed tax rate does not exceed the no new revenue maintenance and operations rate, nor does it raise more taxes for maintenance and operations versus the prior tax rate. That concludes the presentation portion of tonight's public meeting. If the board pleases, we may now move to the to public comments.
All right, Megan, did anyone sign up to speak tonight regarding the budget? All right, thank you. And at this time, the public meeting is closed. Next, we move to action item B, consider the adoption of the 2020-2021 accelerated instruction budget. Mr. Shealy and Mr. Welch.
State law requires that the board adopt an accelerated instruction budget prior to adoption of the general budget. Included on page 361 is a copy of the accelerated instruction budget that we request the board to adopt. The recommendation is to adopt the 2020-2021 accelerated instruction budget as presented.
Second.
Motion by Paige and second by Liz to adopt the 2020-2021 accelerated instruction budget as presented. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Marilyn, how do you vote?
Yay.
Motion carries 7-0. Next, Mr. Shealy, is to consider adoption of the 2020-2021 budget. Mr. Shealy?
All right. It's all right.
Let's try one more time and then it's not, you can go.
Mr. Shealy, you ready? We're ready for the report on 362, the adoption of the 2020-2021 budget.
If not, Rob can, Mr. Welch can cover it.
All right.
All right. Trustees, the budget attached to this agenda item has been vetted against the best information we could find in the state. Changes and refinements in state rules and procedures have altered some of the revenue figures, but for the most part, the budget we presented in prior meetings has stayed consistent. As noted in the previous agenda items, the budget does include several significant items, one being additional personnel, both at campus-based student support positions, as well as central administration positions that support social, emotional wellness, and curriculum development. There's also the 2% raise for all employees that would be calculated on the current year actual salary. And as we discussed earlier, the increase in the district's contribution to insurance premiums of $25 per month. This is the second year in a 3-year plan to move the district's contribution from $225 per month to $300 per month. That means that our contribution for this year will be $275 per month. Expenditures, it also includes expenditures related to COVID-19, and the cost of mitigation for students and employees. With that information, we ask that the board adopt the 2020-2021 maintenance and operation, interest and sinking, and child nutrition budgets as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Liz, second by Paige to adopt the budget as presented. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Marilyn, how do you vote?
Yay.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you very much. Sorry I lost access.
Well, Mr. Shealy, I'm glad you came back because I believe that's your last report on the agenda for tonight.
Yes, sir.
And I know this is your last board meeting, which makes us very sad and probably you very happy, but I just want to appreciate the relationship you've had with this board and the trust we've had in you for all the years that you've served Eagle Mountain Saginaw ISD. And I think Dr. Chadwell has a list of things that we would like to mention that you have accomplished during your time here.
All right, Jim, can you hear us?
Get real close to that.
Can you hear us, Jim?
Yes, I can hear you just
Good.
fine.
Okay, good. Mr. Shealy started in the district in May 2007, and with 13 years in EMS, he's retiring with 23 total years of experience working in school districts in North Texas, also Carroll ISD and Duncanville ISD. Prior to that, he had 12 years in financial businesses, including accounting and auditing, and some for that was with school districts. He's managed population growth in EMS from 13,423 students to today's 21,000 students. He's also managed and support multiple departments from operations to business and finance and set a level of excellence in all that he does. He's managed numerous changes in state school finance law, including a cut of $13 million to the district, which required financial exigency. Under his leadership, we managed through that while not sacrificing the quality of our educational programming. In fact, we were able to continue to prioritize positive program growth in the district to support the changing and growing needs of our community. He rebuilt our fund balance over several years to meet TEA recommendations in accordance with the 5-year budget plan he created. He worked for 3 years to educate state leaders on fractional funding, helped to develop legislation for consideration by the legislature, and later resulted in a change in the law which protected EMS from losing $13 million per year. He addressed unexpected losses in property values from Tarrant Appraisal District after TAD computer conversion he managed a very difficult budget, still resulting in district growth. He participated in and supported the district's Aspire 2022 plan, using his role as CFO to manage the financial needs of implementing these goals. He worked hand in hand with Kirk Murdoch, our Director of Technology, to develop and fund technology plans resulting in wireless added to every facility, a new network operating center, now 2, and approval of the technology plan. This plan provided student devices leading soon in the district to a 1-to-1 additional infrastructure and a focus on instructional technology support. Without this plan, we would not be in the position we are in today to provide for remote learning. He worked carefully with our financial advisors to manage our debt service. During his tenure, we refunded $495.9 million in debt, resulting in a net savings to EMS taxpayers of $114 million in bond interest. The district has been rated AA- by our rating agencies, and because of ongoing prudent financial management by the district, led by the Board of Trustees and Mr. Shealy, we have fostered strong investment into our bond sales. He's become a state leader and expert in school finance. He's a go-to person for other CFOs and state organizations regarding school finance. The aforementioned fractional funding issue was identified through his analysis, even when other state experts had not, and even some denying that it actually existed. Many of my conversations with state leaders ended with, "You need to talk to Jim." Finally, he leads with passion, knowledge, care, and compassion. Although not a K-12 educator by trade, he leads with a heart for all those impacted by public education in Texas. He is grounded by his wife, Marilyn, a retired Spanish teacher, and driven by an altruistic sense of wanting to do what is best for children. We will miss him in EMS, and I thank him from the bottom of my heart for his service and legacy to children, staff, families, and community of our district in the state of Texas. And I know we all wish him very best in his well-earned retirement. Thank you, Jim.
Very much. This is not how I wanted to go out, but I've learned so much from y'all that I'll carry it through the rest of my life, and thank you all very much.
Anybody else want to speak?
You mean you learned a lot from me too? I'm surprised you said that.
Even from you, Tim, even from you.
Appreciate that.
I guess I'd just like to personally thank you, Jim, for all the help you've given all of us board members through our tenure, just always giving us honest, truthful information. We know we can count on you to be direct and to be not beat around the bush, tell us that how it is, and also have a phenomenal knowledge of the state system and the funding, and you know how many times you've been right about what's coming down the pike, maybe seen it before our state professionals do. So I really appreciate all that you've done for us here as a board and instilling confidence in the numbers that we've been able to roll forward with you.
Yeah, and I'll just echo that again to you, Mr. Shealy, because we built that trust over many years, and you had to endure some grillings by Mr. Elkins and myself and other board members, and we appreciated the straight answers you gave us, and if you didn't know, you got us the right answer, the straight answer. So I appreciate working with you for all these years, and I guarantee I'll miss you. So you've already had your standing ovation. We're going to move on now. Is that all right?
He's choked up.
Can't talk. All right. So next we are going to adopt the ordinance to set the tax rate. And Mr. Welch, you have some big shoes to fill, but come up and lead us through this.
Indeed, there's no doubt about that. And one of Mr. Shealy's final lasting impressions will be this tax rate that he's had his hand in proposing, and so I will present it so the board can take action and once again recognize our next step in the budget. So trustees, if you will refer to page 366 in your board book, we provide the ordinance setting the 2020 tax rate for the 2020-2021 fiscal year. That recommendation, as presented in the prior presentations, is to adopt a tax rate of $0.0464 for maintenance and operation, 45 cents for interest and sinking or the debt service, for a total tax rate of $1.4964 per $100 valuation, which again is a 2.19 cent decrease compared to the prior year total rate. The recommendation motion language is provided, and I would be glad to answer any remaining questions at this time.
I make a motion to approve the property tax rate for the 2021 fiscal year be established by the adoption of a tax rate of 1.0464 per $100 of valuation for maintenance and operations, and a tax rate of 0.45 per $100 of valuation for interest and sinking, in order to ensure that the district raised enough revenue to pay outstanding obligations for a total rate of 1.4964 per $100 valuation.
Second.
Motion by Tim Daughtry, second by Donna Webb. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Marilyn, how do you vote?
Yay.
Motion carries 7-0. You have a tax rate and a budget. Next action item is to act on the 1920 budget amendment. Mr. Welch.
Yes, I appreciate this additional item here. We presented the proposed 2019-2020 final budget agenda our amendment earlier in this meeting. We recommend the amendment as presented with an amendment to the debt service fund, restating the final proposed amended budget on line 7915 as $0 and line 7916 as $17,128,133. Are there any questions?
Any questions on that?
I move the board approve the budget amendment for August 2020.
Motion by Donna, second by Liz. Any questions on the budget amendment? Had it early in the report. Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Marilyn, how do you vote?
Yay.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Next, we move into act on some bids and proposals. Mr. Welch, you have 5 of them, I believe. The first one has to do with franchise pizza.
I move we award the proposal of franchise pizza to Ampex Brands PH of Dallas, Inc., parentheses, Pizza Hut, close parentheses, for estimated annual total of $100,000. Actual annual total will depend on district's needs and product usage.
Motion by Donna, second by Paige. Any questions on that? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Marilyn, how do you vote?
Yay. Excuse me, yay.
Motion carries 7-0. Next is act on a bid and proposal for a multi-component data management system for special programs.
I move we extend the agreement with Success Ed for multi-component data management systems for special programs for the second option year to expire September 30th, 2021. The estimated annual total is $100,000. Annual total is to be based on student enrollment.
Motion by Donna, second by Liz. Any questions on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, raise your hand. Marilyn, how do you vote?
Yay.
Motion carries 7-0. Next is to act on a bid and proposal for the smoothie and coffee products and supplies.
I move we extend the agreement for smoothie and coffee products and supplies for the first option year to expire December 31st, 2021 to Domenico Food Products, parentheses, package 1, close parentheses, for an estimated annual total of $32,841.50, and Java Enterprise, parentheses, packages 2 through 4, close parentheses, for an estimated annual total of $61,869.80. Actual annual total will depend upon district's needs and the product usage.
Motion by Donna, second by Paige. Any questions on the smoothie and coffee products? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Marilyn, how do you vote?
Yay.
Carries 7-0. Next is the act on the bids and proposal, the extension of proposal for copier lease services.
I move we extend the agreement for copier lease services for the first option year to expire August 31st, 2021 with Hvac USA. The estimated annual total is $350,000. Actual annual total will depend on copier selection by the individual campuses and new campus additions.
Motion by Donna, second by Liz. Any questions on the copier lease extension? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Marilyn, how do you vote?
Yay.
Motion carries 7-0. The last is the extension of proposal for the HVAC air filter services.
I move we extend the agreement with Filter Systems for HVAC air filter services on a month-to-month basis until a new plan is put in place.
Motion by Donna, second by Liz. Any questions about air filters? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Marilyn, how do you vote?
Yay.
Motion carries 7-0. Our next action item is G, and it's to consider the property and casualty insurance policies. We also had a report on this earlier in the meeting. Mr. Welch.
I make a motion to approve the property and casualty insurance policy package with the 2% wind and hail deductible option for the proposal of Alamo Brown and Brown Insurance for a total cost of $1,801,431.36.
Second.
Motion by Tim, second by Donna. Any discussion on the insurance? Expires in a week. All those in favor, raise your hand. Marilyn, how do you vote?
Yay.
Motion carries 7-0. Our next action item is to consider the authorization of TASB policy service to begin work on the new policy manual. We also heard a report earlier in the evening on that. Ms. White?
Dr. Dawkins will take the report.
Dr. Dawkins, it's on page 449.
I can get my page up to my
Yeah.
motion.
I'm gonna make you walk up there, Dr.
I
Dawkins.
know, hobble up there, thank you. Yes, we just wanted to follow up to see if we could begin the policy work for the new policy manual. And again, this is just authorizing the process.
I move we authorize Tasb Policy Services to add, revise, or delete local policies according to the summary document resulting from the policy review session conducted with the district on April 21st, 2020 and April 22nd, 2020, although, whatever. You need to read the rest of that, I don't think.
All right. You're stopping it at the April 22nd, 2020 with your motion?
I don't think that rest, I think it's just a sentence. I don't think it's part of the motion.
All right.
Do you need it?
Motion by Paige, second by Liz. Stopping the motion after the date April 22nd, 2020. Any questions on that? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Marilyn, how do you vote?
Yay. Oh, yay.
Motion carries 7-0. All right, that brings us back to reports unfinished from the 5 o'clock session, and we're just going to pick them right back up in order. So that brings us to operations report B2, a construction update. Mr. Welch, page 21.
On their construction update, I'd like to start with Copper Creek Elementary. So that's 99% complete right there. If you drive by there, the biggest thing we're trying to get back is the dormant grass. It seemed like it got 2 weeks ago. It was the hottest time of the summer, but we still had to get the grass down, so we'll continue to water it and get it back. We also have a picture of the marquee sign, so have that on site. If you did drive by, one thing you would still see that over there by the gym on the far left side, where the bus loop is located, we've extended out the awning so that it get closer to the where the buses would be picked up. So there's 2 columns that need to be added, so we're still got a delay on those. But so we're working with the campus to make sure that when we put those in, it won't affect drop off pickup. Moving to Boswell High School with Buford Thompson. If you drive by, one of the biggest things you see is the right away would be the old baseball field is gone, and the parking for that new home site is complete as far as the paving, and half the striping is complete. And then the construction group has a place marked off so they can put all their equipment and have a lay down yard. And then on the bottom left by the tennis courts and the baseball field, you see the extension of that road so that we can handle a little more traffic when the game's over and make it a little more ease for dedicated right and left turn when you're leaving the campus on the home side. On the left side, that's the main underground utilities for the main addition going through where you see the Paul R. Jacobs Field, Pioneer Stadium. So they're working on that and putting those utilities in. On all those pictures kind of give a different phase of that, all the way up to the Newcomb Gym where that's where the big turf room will be located. This is the Ag Science Building, and you can see the canopy is in place. You also have the gentleman working on the sidewalks. and that'll be blocked off on that side when we get back to school. If it's not completed on this side, they'll enter on the west side, but hopefully we'll be, they're working on the punch items and so forth, so that should be finished right along, shouldn't be an issue.
But the building's ready to occupy, it's just the outside we're working on? Okay.
Yes. The turf room. So this is the most dramatic part of, remember the turf room. The top left is the coach's office, and that kind of looked like the old one. It's long and narrow, and that is the same furniture that we just harvested from the old one, put it in the new one, and did a little touch-up paint, and that's, we didn't put anything on the floor because we're not going to be there very long. The locker room, and those are the original lockers, and we put a new seat in there for them to be able to sit down and when they get dressed. And then we moved the ice machines down, and the top right, you see where the weightlifting is located. You see the training room, which is in the wide area. It's air conditioned. And on the further side, there's a little fenced in area for some of their items that need to be more secure.
Where's the training room in that picture?
It is on the top right,
Yep.
and it's on my left.
Back left.
Back left.
Okay, I see. So that the white square box thing they've got there, that's, as you said, is air conditioned?
Yes.
Is that where the ice machines are, or are they outside that?
No, they're in one of the little rooms that's where the mechanical is located. We're able to find a spot there, and also put a sink in there for them. In fact, you can see it's already in there in the picture.
Okay.
So let's try to find every space we could to make it work for a short amount of time. And the bottom left is probably what they're more proud of when they go back to work, is all the showers. So that's like double the amount of showers that they would have had from their old one. So we've got them set up for that. And in the middle, the large picture where it says Boswell Pioneers, they did not have a team room before. So just because of the nature of the size of it, we were able to get a little spot of that. In fact, that's the old concession stand. Where for the middle schools, where they use that, so we're able to get that, fill that in, put a picture up there, and the carpet that was left over from another job. So it won't be there again, won't be there very long. And if there's anything we kind of went just above, is we put some paint on the ceiling and put a little light there for the seniors that have something that's a little bit nicer than what everybody else has. So just trying to help them through this last part of it. Any questions about Boswell or? Okay. The turf projects. So we're going to look at a lot of these pictures, but the bottom line is we are through with this. They have done the punch items. So on Wednesday, the players and the coaches could be on these turf fields, except for a few minor things. And by Monday week, the Highland's a little bit behind, not the turf, but actually the track. So that'll be striped and ready to go next Monday. So in all practical purposes, everything will be ready for when the kids come back.
Are Wilkie's also caught up? The one you showed us, a Wilkie had.
Yeah, it was the one that was furthest behind.
Right.
Yes.
It's now ready to go?
It'll be ready to go Wednesday.
On Wednesday?
That was the good news I got received today. Moving on to Lake Country Elementaries. The big one on the bottom left, that's where the three machines are drilling the piers. So they go roughly, the further closer they are to us, is they're shallower as you move toward the tree line. That's obviously where it's been built up and all the dirt's been pushed and packed. Those piers will go down deeper. So they drill those, they put the rebar together. They'll use that green machine right there. In fact, it's carrying one of the iron and rebar that'll go down in the hole, and they bring the concrete in at the same time. So it's, they drill them and they finish them that day. But we're really pleased with, there's like right at 430 piers, and they're over 70% completed. So we're a couple days ahead of schedule on that part of it, the job. The one on the right, just wanted to see how dramatic, how we're chewing into that part of the, that's the that's the southeast corner. And so we dig down on that end and we push the dirt onto the back end where the tree line is. So that's in the final phases of that.
That's about a 15-foot drop, it looked to me like, from where the ninth fairway used to be, where those houses and condos are, down to where we graded that down. Is that about right?
That's about, it's anywhere from 15 to 20, depending on different location. So when you come in, it swells down, then levels off, and then drains over to the detention pond to the north, which then goes into the little pond that's on the other side. But really pleased with the progress on this job so far. This is the Network Operations Center, so it is, this part has been completed. The only thing we're waiting on is the arrival of the generator, and I know I have the end of September, but Kirk informed me a while ago that by the end of the week, it should be there. So we're up and going. By the end of the week, be 100%. And there's some other projects that are going along. The security upgrades, contractors ordering the hardware. And today, outside my office, they started digging up the soil and rock by the maintenance facility to extend the warehouse. So it's underway. Central office, we're going to look at a competitive seal proposal process on that project, the CSP. So we'll be coming in a future board meeting, asking for that procurement method to be approved. And Eagle Mountain High School, we're continuing to work with the site development, talking with the developer about some other opportunities for land on that site. And we'll continue doing that. And then we have Wayside, and again, we're working on that site development also. So it's roughly 30 acres, which is a typical middle school site. And right now we have a middle school and central office spread out. So trying to figure out exactly where we would want to put everything. And the biggest, hardest issue is the geothermal. You need space to be able to harvest the well pads and how much space you have to have between each drill section. So we're trying to work that out with our engineer to make sure that we have enough space for that. But it looks like when you start moving things around, the football field probably needs to go east-west. It's a practice middle school field. Usually they go north-south. But trying to make everything fit and have space, that's kind of looking like a proposal that we need to consider. So not sure how much land there will be left to sell off in the future if that was something we desired. We'll be very limited in that. So
those east-west football stadiums, when those guys practice, it's sun up. Those east-west, I mean, they're practicing middle school when the sun comes up.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no other, you haven't figured out a way yet to not.
Well, we could, we just wouldn't be a geothermal
campus.
It's gonna be hard enough as it is, have some split systems on it, the larger ones. We'll keep working at it, but it's,
You can't put it under what? I mean, you put it under concrete, you just can't put it under a football field? Is that what you're saying?
Correct. If you have a problem, then it's a problem. And then your fire lanes, you can put them under there, but they're the concrete's so thick in those areas, but you can't put them in the parking lot. And we will on this side also.
That where they are?
Football field in the relationship to where it's at right now, that's kind of the back of where the building would be. So that's kind of the prime location closest to the building where you'd want to put all those fields. So. If there's any other questions?
Thank you. Y'all are doing a great job. That's incredible, the difference in the field house, the way it looks, the old turf room for sure. All right, continuing with operations report, we have a summer maintenance update. Mr. Hamilton.
Good evening, Dr. Chadwell, Chairman, members of the board. So give y'all a brief description of what we accomplished this summer. We got a lot done, a lot of projects accomplished. Maintenance department did a really nice job of taking care of a lot of issues that had come up. So we'll go through these real quick. The first one is Chisholm Ridge Elementary School on the south side of the campus. There's a drainage ditch that we fenced many years ago to keep out away from the children. And that was starting to deteriorate pretty bad. So we went in and took all that down and put up a new fence and really made that dress up that campus very nicely and helps with that extra protection for individuals getting in that ditch back there. So that was a really nice accomplishment. The next one, High Country Elementary has a playground unit on the north side of the campus for the younger children, the kindergartners, first grade. And as you can see on the left side, some of the units, individual pieces of the playground unit itself are starting to delaminate and come out. So we had a company come in and we just bought the individual pieces. Well, we first had them come in and evaluate the unit, and then they bought all the individual pieces necessary to replace those pieces that were delaminating. And this is some of the examples that we corrected. A couple there on the steps. This is one of the walkways. And so that was done, and that unit has just been refreshed and looks almost brand new. We did a couple of elementary schools where we did the gym floors. This is a typical floor for the elementary schools that were built in that time frame, and it's a rubberized product, goes down, it's great, it's got some paint on it. And we had a couple of gyms that just through wear and tear, holes were starting to develop, and then they get picked at and they start to grow. We had a couple of them with some very unique cracks in the surface that just from over time started to deteriorate. So we went through and dressed those up. These were High Country Elementary, and so that's the after product. And this is the same material that we used at Bryson and Dozier. So it's a really nice looking floor. It looks really good, freshens that up. We did the same thing at Greenfield Elementary. So we got both of those accomplished this summer.
Those were those old tartan floors?
Yes, sir.
Elkins had one at one time. Okay.
Goes down really well. They have a self-leveling glue, if you will, that goes down on the floor, and then they fix any divots or anything, and then they come back and lay that down. And it goes down really well. It's very soft. It's not hard like
it goes right on top of the.
It does very well. No, the old stuff was pulled up.
Oh, you pulled it out.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we went down to the concrete, then put a self-leveler in, and then put this product back in, and it ran in very, very well. Looks very nice. Saginaw Elementary is one of our, obviously one of the older campuses. It's the only elementary that still has a maple wood floor in it. And I put this picture in here because over time we refinish it every year and we keep up with it, but we've never really sanded it back down to the wood and brought that original color back. And you can tell through this photo, the part on the right was the older version that over time had all this built up and got really dark. And then the right side or the left side is where we sanded all the way back down to wood. And so again, the finished product looks just so well. I mean, it really stands out, brightens up the whole gym, and just really enlightens that whole area. So that turned out to be a really nice finished product. We had 3 campuses that were having a little issue with the curbs out front, just through various reasons, and cars hitting them over time, and they started to break and collapse. And so it was Willow Creek, Lake Point, and Parkview. And so we went through there and pulled all the old curb out that was breaking and put in new curb. Looks very similar to this. This is Willow Creek, but it looks very similar to that. Cleaned it all up, got any of the fire lanes repainted and striped. And so that's kind of what a finished product looks like. And it turned out very, very well too. It really helps clean up the front of the campuses. Boswell High School, at the very front of the entrance on both sides of Anderson wings, we had a lot of windows that were having some moisture issues and couldn't really quite figure out what was going on in some of those rooms. And so it turns out that some of these windows had started to deteriorate on the seals and water was getting trapped in these windows. So we went through and took 19 of them completely out, put brand new windows in, had them all sealed up. That turned out really well. And as far as we can tell right now, we've really helped on the humidity in some of those rooms on those outer wings there. And that really cut down on that, along with the AC that we thought maybe it was an AC problem, but it turned out to just be these windows capturing water. They weren't necessarily draining into the rooms, but they were capturing it in some of the seals. So we got all that pulled out and got some new windows in, and that turned out very, very well. Chisholm Trail had a similar incident. This is the cheerleading gymnasium. This particular bay of windows, same problem. There were some seals up around the edges that apparently just started to deteriorate and come loose. So on certain rain events, especially when the wind's blowing the right direction, it would get in the frames of the windows and it would creep down, and then it would slide down inside and start to, again, create some moisture problems and get the window sills very wet. So We got that completely sealed up. We didn't put a new window, but they came in and they take the outer rim of the seals and resealed everything and got all that sealed up, and we checked it with some water hoses and stuff, and it appears that we got that problem resolved as well. Then we had several campuses that we went through and did, we're on a rotation thing, so we're going to start doing handrails, door frames, exterior doors, and those kind of things on the campuses. This is an example of some of the stairwells that we did at Creekview and Chisholm Trail, and just over time through hands, many hands that touch these rails, they start to get dirty and dingy, and the paint will flake off. So we've gone through and repainted all the handrails in those two campuses. Gilliland and Creekview, same thing on the door frame. Went through all the door frames because they're the ones that get touched and chipped and dinged up all the time. Repainted all of those, the little window sills, all that was repainted. And that turned out very well. A lot of the exterior doors on the campuses due to sun, they get baked and then they start to fade into, really pastel looking colors. So we've gone through Saginaw High School, had that, Chisholm Trail had that, Creekview also had that, where we went through and painted those exterior doors and really freshened up the outside of the campuses. There's not a photo, but Creekview also had, above some of their exterior doors, they had these little metal canopies that came out. And those were installed rare raw metal, but they started to look bad over time, and so we got all that treated and painted, and that really looks very well. And then the last one is that Athlete Development Center on the chiller plant in the back. Just over time, these units go through upgrades. We get upgrades on the computer systems when you have to install Windows 10 and various things like that. And these old control systems sometimes are not compatible with that. So we had to go through and pull this control panel out and put a brand new control panel in, and then reprogram the whole system so that it operates with our new operating system. So that went very well. That building's operating very efficiently. So everything went very well with that. And I think that's all we had for this one. So any questions or comments on any of those projects?
Well, I'd like to say how much I appreciate y'all and your staff getting things like this done, because I think this is what sets Eagle Mountain Saginaw apart from a lot of different districts. You can go look, they build a building and they sit there and do nothing for it until they're ready to tear it down and build another one. And that's, it just makes our facilities look nice. When our facilities look like that, our teachers are proud to go there, our kids are proud to go there, and it gives the community something to be proud of, and I think they appreciate that. I know I do, and I know the board does, so thank y'all.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions?
Well, we're busy this summer, and you did a great job.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we did finish the finance report, so it takes us to report D, Education Services Report, and the first one is the Fine Arts Report. Director of Fine Arts, Mr. Sean Bell. Good to see you, sir. Welcome.
You as well. President Newcomb, Dr. Chadwell, members of the board, Peanut Gallery. It's my honor and privilege to be here tonight. Mr. Daughtry, hunker down. I've got quite the presentation today.
I'm timing you. Go ahead.
All right, okay. It is indeed my honor and privilege to be here. Obviously, last year, 2019-2020, gave us many challenges and disappointments along the way, but we still had many great moments and celebrations in Eagle Mountain Saginaw Fine Arts as well. So I want to share some of those with you tonight if I can. First of all, you'll see these are the 10 district-wide events that we offer students the opportunities to participate in and celebrate their efforts throughout the year. You can see numbers 3, 6, and 9. Because of COVID-19, we were unable to experience those. However, you'll see number 7, very proud of this and proud of our teachers and students. We were able to produce a virtual art show showcasing our talented visual arts students from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade, and award scholarships to 3 very deserving high school seniors in visual arts. And we also celebrated the high school fine arts signing days. We started that a year prior in celebrating, just like athletics celebrates athletes that are going on in athletic endeavors at the next level. We started that as well to showcase our fine arts students that go on to the collegiate ranks in their chosen discipline. And we were able to do that in a virtual fashion, which we're very proud of. And if you notice, there's a couple of pictures that I want to point out. First of all, we were again awarded the honor of being one of the best communities for music education in the country by the National Association of Music Merchants. And I think this was our 6th or 7th year in a row, which is I'm very proud of the work that our educators do with our students in that way. And then the middle picture is kind of a joke. You see, our groups all received a sweepstakes in COVID-19 last year. So we're going to get that, Dr. Chavin, and let you put that in your office. So there you go.
For the bass, just because we missed the 1 year, do you anticipate we'll be able to revive that relationship with the Bass Hall?
I sure hope so. In fact, we have a date tentatively on the books.
Already?
Yes, for Tuesday, May the 25th. So fingers crossed and hopeful that we can continue to the partnership with Bass Hall. But all indications are very positive. We have a great working relationship with Performing Arts Fort Worth, which is the governing body entity that runs and schedules everything for the hall. So fingers crossed that we'll be able to celebrate students at the end of the year. That'd be a tremendous way to wrap up this next year. Great question. All right, as we look at our fine arts academic performance targets, as we roll them in from Aspire 2022 to 2025, obviously there were some that we could not, didn't occur, so we didn't have data to look at those particular targets and how we did. However, the first 2 in particular, we did increase our participation in band and choir in the Texas Music Educator sponsored auditions. Those include region bands at the middle school, high school level, region choirs, and then the all-state process as well. And they're very important opportunities for student growth, individual growth in those disciplines. We dropped just a little bit in the student retention rate in our secondary dance programs. That's a hard target to hit consistently because, as you know, many students at the high school level particularly will take a Dance 1 course to fulfill their fine arts requirement for graduation. And unless they're part of a drill team, for instance, we want they very often then go on and do something else. However, we want to try to keep them in the program. And then we also created a baseline for a new goal, increasing the yearly percentage of student retention with our secondary theater arts programs. We want to see that grow by 10% annually is our target, is our goal. So some highlights as we go along, and I would encourage you to take a look at the pictures from last year. Visual arts, we increased student participation in the Visual Arts Scholastic Event, or VACE, as the acronym is called. That's sort of the visual arts complement of a TMEA all-state process audition, if you will. Great motivation, great opportunities for visual arts students to grow in their crafts. And then we've, as you probably know, we've increased the visibility of student artwork throughout the community at the Saginaw Rec Center, at the Saginaw Library, as well as the Abbotshan building right here outside Dr. Chadwell's office. So we like to continue to showcase our artists. Our bands increased student participation, as we mentioned, in the TBA auditions, and all 3 high school marching bands earned first division awards at the UIL Region 30 marching contest. So you can see some great pictures celebrating our visual artists as well as our band students and programs there. Our choirs increased student enrollments in their secondary choir programs, continue to grow, which is really exciting. And they continue participation at various community events and supporting those, from the Train and Grain Festival to Rotary Club meetings and Taste of Northwest, etc. Our dance teams, they fulfilled and were able to enjoy successful football, basketball season performances, and they did really well at their chosen regional, state, and national competitions. You can see some of the hardware and the awards, the bottom left by Pure Gold, and then also you see the flyer or the poster that was created for our district dance showcase last year, which we're very proud of. And then you also see choir pics there, and the top picture was actually probably the last opportunity for one of our choirs to perform before everything shut down, and that was literally the Saturday before our spring break began. So that's kind of the midnight hour, so to speak, with that. Our elementary fine arts, we had a successful elementary choir festival where all campus choirs participated and performed and received adjudication and feedback. And then obviously they continue to shine at our holiday open house, and they perform on their own campuses in very collaborative fashion, featuring visual arts, music, and theater arts. Some of our campuses produce musicals. Others have fine arts nights where you can come view the visual arts and you can actually hands-on go to a room and create some artwork yourself. And that's a lot of fun and opportunity for us to engage with parents in the community. And then our theater arts programs, we had 3 outstanding musical productions last year at all 3 high schools, and all 5 middle schools produced one-act plays. It was just a few years ago when I first came that we only about 3 out of our 5 at the time middle schools were producing one-act plays, and now all 6. I should have updated that.
I was going to say, don't we have 6 now?
Yeah, that's my faux pas. I'm sorry. I've got 5 in, seared into my brain, but yes, all 6, including Marine Creek, did a beautiful job last year. And then the poster at the bottom left, 10 Ways to Survive Life in a Quarantine, was a virtual live theater production that was produced by Creekview Middle School Theater and Jason Walker. And a friend of his, who was a former middle school theater director in North Texas, who is a playwright, wrote this at the beginning of the quarantine. He went to work and creatively produced this, and so Jason got a hold of it, and if it wasn't the premiere of the work, it was like one of the first performances of it. So that was a lot of fun. And finally, just give you a minute to say, these are pictures. I usually give you a chance to see these, and maybe you see students or groups that you know. These were all performance pictures from this past year, celebrating our students from Boswell Band, drum majors in the rain. Wasn't it last fall we had a lot of rain and football and in the rain and that sort of business. And then pictures from various musical performances as well as marching contests, holiday open house. And we're very, very proud of the accomplishments of our students and the hard work of our educators in making all this happen. So that's all I have this evening. I would entertain any questions or.
Thank you, Sean, your programs are always first notch. You always make our district proud, and we appreciate the work you and your fine arts department and administration and staff do. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Don't be running off now. You can sure stay and listen
There's a
to
chair.
the rest. There's a chair right there. Dr. Baker, the school safety report. Okay. And Sean does not want to let go of that screen, does he?
Y'all bear with me. I need for this to come up.
Deborah, what you taught there?
Okay. All right, I apologize. I think I thought it was going to be on here.
If we want to have her go next, and they can locate it.
That'll make it. We can.
Dr. Baker, if we want to have Megan go ahead and go, you could get it in the meantime, and then we can load it
Okay.
after hers. Unless you have it right there, that's fine.
Yeah, I was just going to pull it out from email.
Okay, that's fine.
Gonna switch, all right? Sure, no problem. Making the annual communication report.
Okay, let's see if I can get down here to mine. All right, you see it? Kurt, can you switch us over? Great. Good evening, everyone. I am pleased to bring our annual report on the efforts and activities of the Communications Department. Tonight, I plan to share some brief highlights about our goals and our areas of focus, our work as it relates to our brand model and the strategic engagement and retention plan, and some of our examples of our engagement initiatives. So we'll start with our framework here. Our work in communications is grounded and with a strategic focus on three main areas, all centered on the EMS ISD experience. The first is organizational climate, that's the foundation. The The second is organizational image, and that's what we cultivate. And the third is our organizational engagement, which creates the connections that sustains our brand long-term. To do that, we focus on 9 key areas of our strategic model. We touch on everything we do falls in one of these areas in communications and has a very strategic focus that's aligned with our brand messaging. The foundation of our strategic communications is this brand model, which focuses on our brand of community. This brand was defined in 2017 through a targeted survey of parents, non-parents, and potential future parents. Our community identified our brand as that, community. They felt like this is a place to call home, this is who we are, this is what we want to build our life around. This is a sense of community here. That's who we are. And so they told us that, they built our brand. 3 themes rose to the top within that study, and those are what we call our brand pillars, and that would be personalized opportunities, world-class educators, and our family culture. Within each one of those, we defined high-value attributes. Those are what we use for our talking points, our story leads with our targeted audiences, things that resonate with our community and with our different target audiences. So these lead to various avenues that we use to promote engagement. So we'll show you just a couple of areas here. A big area of engagement is on our social media. There's a lot of images up there, but I want to call your attention to the green circle. That's our social sentiment. We track our social media engagement through a variety of channels. The primary tool is this Meltwater. This comes out of our Meltwater software. It tracks mentions, it tracks all the different places that are in public forums that we might be referenced. So we can see kind of what people are talking about, how they're talking about us, and what is trending of interest that we might need to provide additional information. So you can just kind of see, these are some of the examples. We've had a lot of engagement over social media this year, especially in the last 6 months. It's been a very active tool for us to provide information and also to gather feedback. Some of our top tweets, you can see Coach Ab up there got a top tweet in there. Our video in the middle, the We Miss You video in the spring, that was phenomenal. I don't know if you got a chance to see that, but Chris Hill did a fantastic job on that video. It kind of touched some heartstrings there. But you see we do a variety of different things in our social media. Let's look at our numbers on that. This shows our current metrics for 3 of our social media outlets. Now, one thing to note is this does not include our campus, our department, or our specific program or activity pages like the curriculum page and things like that. This is specific to just the district. So if you look at Facebook, our total page likes are 13,000, just over 13,000. That's up about 3,300 over last year. So that's a healthy growth, especially when people are on and off of social media avenues. That our number of posts is down just a little bit from the number we did last year. A lot of that has to do with not having as many events and activities to promote in the spring. But we're on trend with the same numbers there. Our top posts in Facebook are, and you'll see a trend with this across our social media, all the reconnect stuff, the back to school planning, that always gets a lot of high engagement. But in addition to that, you see our other top post was our We Miss You video. So that was exciting to see. Facebook is primarily our parent audience. On Twitter, right next to that, we have just over 8,000 followers on Twitter. That's up just about 900 from last year. That's primarily going to be staff and students. And you'll see our top posts there again, or top tweets there again, were information about the school year, but then also our naming for Jared Hardy and Mr. Parrish. So those are going to be fun events to be able to promote later in the fall. Instagram is interesting to note. We are up on Instagram about 400, but Instagram is not an information push tool for us. We use that to showcase our culture. So it's photos and images that represent who we are, images that represent that brand. So it's growing at a little slower pace, but we're still getting some good traction. Another area of engagement is in our digital marketing, e-newsletters, website, and then of course our YouTube. Our e-newsletters, we do those, we flip-flop those. One week it's staff, the next week it's community. The website has gotten lots of hits this year. We have a lot of great information that we put out there on the website, built special pages to support community resources. So you'll see our top pages of views are on our homepage, our family access, and our staff quick links. But then also you'll see the specific COVID-19 items, the coronavirus hub, the distance learning, and then the reconnect pages. Those all they received and still continue to receive a lot of good action on our website. So we're pretty proud of those pages and continue to maintain those and update those with new information as we get it. Our YouTube subscribers are also steadily increasing. Our graduation live streams were some of our top watched or top viewed on YouTube this year. It was followed closely again by our We Miss You video in the spring, and then of course our On Location series. So we're able to do 4 On Location video series this year. You'll see up in the top, my left, I guess it'd be your left too, flipped around, is Junior Achievement. And then we have Dr. Chadwell interviewing students for Friday Night Lights. We did one for Holiday Open House. And then of course we did the opening or the preview tour of Copper Creek, which was a lot of fun to be able to get in there and see that and then to share that with our community. So we plan to continue this video series, kind of an inside look into things that happen in our school district and kind of like on location at Copper Creek. Kind of, you don't get to go into a construction site unless we take you there. So one of those fun opportunities there. Next, we have our community magazine. Our printed marketing has been making a comeback, and our flagship piece is that community magazine. We've had 4 issues so far. We are putting the final touches on our fall 2020 issue, and that should be coming out in late September, early October, I think is the deadline on that. The fun thing about that is we really do try to make that a community magazine. So it features district highlights, but it also includes inserts from the city of Saginaw, Blue Mound, and Fort Worth. And then also our education foundation is featured. And I am pretty excited because we're seeing interest in advertising grow. We've got a couple of ad contracts for our magazine, and we're hoping to continue to get more with that. We do produce this all in-house, so we contribute all the content, and Chelsea Westbrook on our team, she's our editor, if you will. She curates all the content and she designs all the pages. So she does some fantastic work with that, and we're pretty proud. In addition to that, we have fact sheets that we do every year. We have our district and campus fact sheets, printed and digital. We also work with the schools to provide campus graduation profiles that they can give to the colleges that outline front and back, details that they need for their graduates. And then of course we have special purpose information, printed materials, anything from invitations and programs to advertisements, process flow charts, you name it. You need an infographic, we can probably try to make that for you. So we do spend some time working on special purpose marketing. Another area of our focus is on community outreach. So there's a whole list of items there, and that doesn't cover all that we do, but those are some of the highlights. Wanted to make sure I put a holiday open house photo in there for our board. A large portion of our feedback that we get comes from our annual surveys and our Let's Talk system. We operate with the philosophy that communications is two-way. So you can push information out, but you also have to have methods for people to provide you information. You have to be able to listen, have that social listening so that you ensure that your messaging is aligning with what your community needs. And so Let's Talk and our surveys have been fantastic tools for us with that. We have Let's Talk at the district level as well as at all the campuses with all the questions and everything and the uncertainty that we were all trying to filter through this summer, that we saw an uptick, a large uptick in our use of Let's Talk, which was really, really good. Back to school planning, reconnect questions. So that's been a great way for us to gather feedback and then also respond to those concerns. It's really hard to talk in a mask, I can tell, but I'm like,
Just take a breath.
sorry about that. So in addition to our feedback mechanisms and our other ways to gather community input, we also have other outreach that includes community type events. So we have our convocation last year that we got to have. We had our community business fair attached to that. And so we're able to connect our staff with our community supporters and the resources that are available that support our educators. Mr. Bell mentioned our Saginaw Train and Grade. That was so fun. I don't know if I got to come to that, but I sat on the planning committee, and then we partnered on a booth with Allie with the Education Foundation, and we had so fun. It was so cold that morning when we first got there, but that didn't stop people from coming out, and we had a great day of just interacting with people all day long, getting to tell them about programs that we had and things that they didn't know was even available to them. So it's a great, great outreach tool. We were bummed that it was going to be canceled again this year, canceled for this year, but they're already working on the next one. So we're ready to host again for that. This year, like most everybody else, with all the shutdown orders, we had to do some of our spring events virtually, and that included our annual employee recognition banquet and our service awards. So we were able to put that out. That's our Jazz About Educators. So you can see a couple of events there. The big photo down in the corner is from the Taste of Northwest event that we've been a part of for a couple of years. So in addition to some of the more fun stuff, we have other functions of our department that are maybe not quite so fun, but they are very significant. That would include processing this last year about 90 Public Information Act requests, FERPA requests, or subpoenas. We helped facilitate that process with our schools and with our various departments. That's actually down slightly from the previous year, but I think that had to do with the fact that processing was impacted due to COVID with the shutdown. And we didn't see as many requests come in because of that as well, I think. We did roll out Remind as a communication tool for our campuses just this last summer. I was asking Kirk a minute ago, was that really just last summer? But it was, and so we're getting that up and running again for them this year for school to get ready. Most of them are already working and using it. So that's been a great tool to support our campuses. They were gonna have to pay or to find a new system, and we wanted to provide a way to standardize that for them. So we were able to do that. We have continued working on our website accessibility, and we've been successful with the changes made to comply with the federal requirements. We continue to support our campuses with crisis and parent information letters, infographics, resources, anything else that they need to help streamline their communication with parents and with students. And then we also work on legislative, financial communications, and really anything else Dr. Chadwell needs on behalf of the district. So we are here to support that. This is the team. It all happens through the skills and talents of the people, the women that you see here. Since the last report, we have changed a couple of faces. You'll see Christina Williamson. She's been around for a little while now. And then we've also added Kristen Barnes. We stole her from athletics, and we are happy to have her on our team. I gotta tell you, I'm very excited about this group of ladies. I have a very stable, very supportive, and very talented team that I get to work with every day. They've been true professionals. We've asked, everybody has been asked to do so much more, and they haven't missed a beat. So I'm super proud of them, and I'm proud to be able to work with them. One thing that comes with working with professionals is that they also have awards and recognitions. So just as we expect of our students and our teachers, we also continue to learn and we continue to grow in our own profession. So you'll see some of those accolades there. This is the 5th consecutive year that our department has been honored at state and national levels. The best of category, which is Chelsea there in the middle, holding the medal. That is highly competitive, and this is the 3rd consecutive year that we've come home with 1 or more best of category medals. You heard earlier this year about my passing of the PR accreditation exam. And then now we also will have 2 of us who have successfully completed the Certified Public Communicator program at TCU. Chelsea was supposed to graduate this past July, but COVID put a damper on that. So she will complete her coursework and will either graduate either this December or it might even spill into the next year. But super proud of her. Having been through it, that's a lot of work. And she's done a fantastic job with that. And so if you can't tell, I'm really proud of these ladies. I'm proud of the team that we have, and I'm proud of the work that we get to do for the district. So with that, I rushed through that presentation, but if you have any questions, I'll be happy to talk.
Thank you, Megan, very much.
Thank you.
For your efforts. And you just have to take a deep breath in that mask.
I'm telling you.
Yeah, get hyperventilated. Yeah.
It sucks up in my mouth, but
Yeah.
thank you.
Uh-huh. Learn that early. All right, Dr. Baker, the school safety report.
Yes. Check with Kurt, see if he's throwing it back in.
You get that fancy mask, that logo mask.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Yeah, it was gifted to me. My mother knows an embroiderer.
Dr. Baker, if you want to, while that's loading, if you want to just refer to the page in the report, if you have a copy there, that's fine. Oh, there we go.
Absolutely, here it
Okay,
is.
sure.
Yeah, apologies. My first slide will probably speak to the faux pas for tonight. This one right here, expectations and reality. Before I get going, I appreciate you letting me speak. Mr. Newsom Board, Dr. Chadwell. As we look at this slide, yeah, a little joke about my faux pas tonight, but you might even think of this COVID period as a twisted reality for us, and truly it is. But when we talk about safety and security, we really got to back up and look at the beginning of 2019. Because truly, every year we come into the school year having ideas, having plans, wanting to roll things out. And then all of a sudden the state might hit us up with something, and surely that took place start of this past school year. So this slide really is about 2019 and the start of the school year. Really unprecedented, uncharted, again, not just because of COVID, but because of the legislative mandates that took place here at the start of the year. And so what I want to do in this presentation is go through some of those legislative mandates that we saw that really had us really reeling, starting with Senate Bill 11. This was a huge bill that came out in the summer of last year. It had a huge impact, and I have a few things here listed. There was an increase in the emergency readiness and communication. There's plenty of things that we had in place, but there were some things that certainly that this bill spoke to that we had to get in line with. One of the things was to make sure that our substitute teachers were on par, receiving the same type of safety training and communication that a general ed or special ed teacher would receive. And so this was a bit of an undertaking. We came up with the idea of utilizing Crisis Go to have a check-in when they arrive on our campuses. And after their responsibilities are done for the day, the campus would check them out through Crisis Go. So that ensured that they had all emergency communications that took place on the campus for that day. The next day, if they were at another campus, they'd do the same process, pretty simple process of checking in and checking out.
Senate Bill 11, we'll talk a little bit more here in a moment about the emphasis on physical and psychological safety that this bill spoke to. This was a huge piece, and again, I'll hit that here momentarily. Senate Bill 11 also asked that we form a safety and security committee. This was quite different than what we had seen in the past. We chose to name ours the Safety Advisory Committee. Several of you are members of that committee, but it mandated that the board president, not the superintendent, and designees of the superintendent had to be on this committee. It functioned in a pseudo board type fashion where we had open and closed sessions and things of that nature. The mandates stated that this committee were responsible for all of the district audit reports. They had to oversee that process to make sure everything that we were submitting was accurate and correct. They also have oversight over supporting us with increasing law enforcement duties, or excuse me, law enforcement on campus. I think on page 91 of your board book, you might, or 92, you might have a list of ways that we've come up to increase police presence on our campuses. This was encouraging as we talked about this. Dr. Chadwell and I were both able to speak to both the Saginaw and the Fort Worth police and remind them and let them know how much we really did want for them to be on our campuses. Obviously, a lot of social unrest in our country, but we really wanted to underscore for them that their presence was needed, necessary, wanted, and I think they were appreciative of that. Another thing that the Safety Advisory Committee supported us on, and something that in September we'll come back and ask the board to approve of this, that is the SRO duties. Having two chiefs of police, both from Saginaw and Fort Worth, on this committee, they were able to really support us as we came up with this list of duties, and we'll look at that here in a moment as well. Mandatory drills, that was a big thing that came out of this bill. What we're used to is having for example, a fire drill every month. Well, this mandatory drill came out and reduced the amount of drills. Now, although they reduced it down to just 8 drills, and you see the list of them there, there's still much that TEA is planning to do, and they've not rolled out fully how they want for us to do these drills, particularly in a period of social distancing. So we're still waiting for more information from them on this, but it certainly had a significant change to how we do business. So Senate Bill 11 was huge. There are other aspects of Senate Bill 11 that we saw. Here's another one that had a huge impact on us, and that was House Bill 496. This is the Traumatic Injury Response Protocol. This is where we had to install bleeding control kits and strategically place them around our campuses. There's training that is to come, and Holly is working on that plan through health services. But we've got to we've got to train all students 6th grade and up, as well as all staff, on how to utilize these bleeding control kits. One of the main things in the kit is a tourniquet, and so that's something that they will have to learn how to do. So again, another huge bill that took us by storm, and by January 1, we had to have this plan in place. I think it was like October before they really gave us enough information to know what we were doing. Senate Bill 1707 was another major one. I've already alluded to this one. This is in reference to the SRO duties. Again, in September, we will come back and share that with you. This will require board approval. But the SRO duties need to be spelled out. Once we get them all spelled out and you've approved of them, we have to have them in all of our major forms of communication. Anything that speaks to an SRO's duties and responsibilities, it will need to be placed in there. And so you can see, I think in your board book, page 90, 91 is a list of the duties. Again, the SAC committee, the Security Advisory Committee or Safety Advisory Committee, with 2 sitting chiefs on it. We started back in probably in January working on this and going through it. So hopefully you all will see the value in it, and in September we can move forward with that. Another significant change, and this is more of a new change, and I'll try to walk us through this one. This is in relation to Chapter 37 of the Texas Education Code, 37.115, and it's in relationship to threat assessment and safe and supportive school programs and teams. And so we saw in 1999, after the massacre in Columbine, under I think the Clinton administration, they were commissioned to come up with threat assessment models, and several models are out there. But since Columbine, we still have seen a rash of shootings, school shootings, and it's increased, culminating in 2018 with the number of shootings that we saw. And so TEA started asking the question, are behavioral threat assessments enough? Is it enough for us to just try to identify? TEA says no, and so they've come back with this safe and supportive school program and the team. And so what I want to do is spend a little time and hopefully try to clarify what this is about. Here we see 3 separate circles, 3 different silos, if you will. Obviously, we are all in the education business. We're pretty well versed with academic and learning support. That's what we do. That's our bread and butter. Since the rash of shootings, school safety and security obviously has come to the forefront. It is a major part of what we do today. With that, in conjunction with that, school mental and behavioral health services is another major piece that has it's taken up its own space. I mean, it is a major piece that we need to look at. What TEA is saying is that these things are operating in their own silos, and so they have sought to, with this Safe and Supportive Schools program, to pull these 3 things together. Real quickly, this is just a chart showing the charge for school safety, that strengthening safety and emergency protocols, mental health initiative, as well as funding. They wanted to put these things in place and to bolster the safety in our schools. And so with that, you see the culmination that they are focusing on psychological and physical safety. And then finally, this one shows you where those things start coming together and are more interconnected. There are, through Senate Bill 11, lots more connections between all of these things. And so the goal in TEA's mind is to increase the coordination amongst safety stakeholders in our schools. Here's another piece that really is kind of new for us, and it's going to be pretty significant. That is that second little graph on the right, increased data collection. The state is asking that we take note and send in to them every year, probably once a year. Again, some of the details are not yet known, but to send in significant amount of data in terms of threat assessment as we are going through that. This November will be the first iteration of that data. And again, it's supposed to be a bit of an abbreviation of all of the things that they need. Just because it's new, they're going to abbreviate it. I'm waiting on responses to emails, and hopefully I'll learn here this week kind of what they're looking for so that we can start preparing for that. And then again, increased support. You see that. There are 6, again, talking about the Safe and Supportive School program, there are 6 different components. I think I've, might have mentioned this group, or maybe it was another, maybe it was a safety and security advisory group, that most of these things we are already doing. I think the data collection will be certainly the newest piece, but we are already looking at how to bolster a positive school climate. We have that. We've been working on PBIS and character counts and character education, restorative practices, all those Lions Quest, all those things have been in place already. You were able to approve on number 2, approve for the position of a multi-tier system of support director. And so again, this is something that we have already been doing. The threat assessment is newish. Maybe in about the last 2 years, we've been focusing on it. And so, but it's already in place. Again, it's number 4 and number 5, I think are going to be the new or the more challenging things for us. As we talk about well-trained staff, I think we've got to even go down to well-trained students. As I've already mentioned, the bleeding control kits. But even in a threat assessment, in that process, everyone has to know, and there could be a clog if people do not know where they need to send their information. If they don't know who's on the teams, if they don't know which mechanisms that are needed to communicate, it can again be a clog to what we're trying to do. And so training the staff and the students, the collection of the data, and then the emergency planning and execution. Those are the 6 pillars that the state has identified for this Safe and Supportive School program. This slide is a little busy for you. I think you see that you guys are represented up at the top as this is being directed under you. The large blue box is showing the 3 different potential configurations that we can have. We've chosen to go with the district-wide team, Safe and Supportive School team, and that district-wide team will oversee each campus as they are developing theirs. You see in the very bottom, the multiple members. These are the folks that need to be a part of the Safe and Supportive Schools program team, someone from Human Resources, etc. And Dr. Chadwell, Dr. Parker, we've already discussed who can be on, who we want on that team. And so I think we're well on our way. And then the members on the far right, these are the groups of people that need to be on the Safety Advisory Committee. All of them are present on that committee as it stands. One of the ones that I want to point out is the emergency management person. This is one that we really don't have in our district, but we will glean our information from that person. Actually, we have 2 on that Safety Advisory Committee, so we'll glean support from them as we move forward with the Safe and Supportive Schools program. The impact of COVID, you know, we're yet to really know how this is going to impact us as our students plan to come back to us. Clearly, we all, you and I, we all have been greatly impacted on a personal, professional level. We feel it. It's palpable, knowing what we're in and what we're dealing with. And so certainly we can assume, and we know that when our students come back, they are going to have certain amounts of challenges. And so the Safe and Supportive Schools program is designed to be an answer for them and a support system for them and our teaching staff. All right, I want to shift gears and really briefly talk about our audit. You do know that in December of last year, the auditors came out and were in district for about a week. And so the audit did take place. I shared with you the results of that audit on May 18th at one of our first online board meetings. And then the district audit report needed to be approved by the SAC. And so they were able to do that on August 6th. The DAR report is due on November 15th, and I'll let you know that it has already been submitted as of, I think, Wednesday or Thursday of last week. So we have that done, and these are the dates that are relevant to that. The last thing I want to mention is the role of our security specialists during this pandemic. You know, when things hit us, obviously none of us really knew what this was and how to manage and how to deal. One of the things that we wanted to do is to ensure that in a desperate time that our facilities were well taken care of. And so we asked these men and women, the security specialists, to do patrol duties. We've asked them, we started off with 24 hours, 7 days a week. Not 7 days a week, but 7 days a week. They were able to patrol the district. You know, a monumental task. I mean, I don't think I fully realized the challenge that it would be for them. I should have. The fact that they are, you know, working longer shifts, 10 to 12-hour shifts, and riding in a van for that period of time. It was pretty taxing on them all. But yet they did a great service, I think, for the district. Community members have expressed their appreciation of seeing them, recognizing the van as they are going around the community in our schools. Our staff, our cafeteria staff were supported by these men and women. Police officers have commented how they appreciated having another set of eyes and other people that could kind of be present on the campuses and to avert some of the wrongdoing that could have taken place. And so these men and women, I mean, they really had some of the dirty work. They were the bad guys in many regards, as people wanted to utilize our facilities. Instead of social distancing, they were socially congregating in great numbers. Our people had to be the ones that stepped up and said, look, you can't do that. And so I really want to lift them up. If you know them, see them, please give them a pat on the back and express your appreciation for what they have done. It's been a quiet job, but yet it's been a meaningful one. And so that's a bit of a review. I am happy to take any questions that you might have for me.
One comment, that's a lot of training for our staff and teachers. Are you gonna, is your plan to do it like in a compliance bundle or one-on-one, or how are you gonna roll that out?
Yeah, there's a number of them, and no, they all can't be done in the compliance bundle. We're gonna have to schedule them out, put them on Edge for you, allow folks to sign up. Again, the bleeding control kit and that portion of it, Holly's working on that plan, and so she'll have it. But you know, from communication to the behavioral threat assessment, the state is rolling out a bunch of virtual trainings, and so every member of the SSSP team, as well as each campus team, will have to go through that. But that's a generalized training for what threat assessment is. Then I will need to come back and undergird it with the actual model and the process that we are doing. Yeah, it'll be a task, but that's how we're going to do it. Thank you.
You've done a great job leading the committee. I'm a required member of, so I appreciate that. So any way we can help you going forward, please let us know.
I will. Thank you. Well, I appreciate the support that you've already given, so thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Baker, that was the last report of the night. We will now move to the routine monthly report, starting on page 451. Are there any questions on any of those things there? Seeing none, we'll move to the review of the 2020 board planning calendar. Dr. Chapel, page 525.
Yes, sir. The reports for this next meeting will include the 1920 Advanced Academics Report, the Career and Technology Report, and additional reports from Operations. We'll have under action items or act on bids and proposals. You'll see the items listed under routine reports, tax collection, finance reports, bid and proposals. Consent agenda includes approval of minutes, submission of class size waivers if we need them, approval of any resolution regarding extracurricular participation in Area 4-H organizations, and approval of the Tasb Update 115 that was in your packet this evening.
All right, again, if you have an agenda item you'd like added, please let myself or Dr. Chapel know. That moves us to the consent agenda for approval. Motion by Liz.
Second.
Second by Donna. To approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Marilyn, how do you vote?
Yay.
Marilyn, motion carries 7-0. Consent agenda is approved. Next we move to any announcements. First, the board president and then the superintendent. Marilyn, we'll be thinking about you this week and good thoughts for you.
Thank you.
We appreciate you joining us for tonight's meeting. And Dr. Chapel, as we move towards more virtual learning and an inline option, I look forward to working with you and being there for anything you or your leadership team needs.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Chapel?
All right. Obviously, the first day of remote learning was this last Thursday, and I want to just credit all the individuals that made that possible. Obviously, the educators and support staff, everybody, every EMS employee providing the support to make that possible. A lot of technology was passed out. Anyone that's needed any device has now has a device, and we have obviously started and done a lot of support for people to get on. Sometimes things like just remembering what your password was a few months ago, or making sure a driver is loaded. I've done my own tech support myself with my own kiddos, and so I also want to thank our parents for the amount of support and work they've done to support their children and support us. As I've gone through schools and I've seen our teachers online with kids and just watched some of the really wonderful, innovative and things that they've done to break through the technology divide and work with them, it's really incredible. Just really incredible what's been done by our teachers, again, supported by our instructional technologists and our administrators and really the whole team. It's been wonderful. And also our students are, we've never had to deal with this before, obviously. We've never had this experience as kids, and they're having this continue. We know it's very stressful on them. It's very stressful on everybody involved, and we know that especially for those kids that are the first time in a grade level, from a kindergartner to, as we heard earlier this evening, a senior, in dealing with that stress of this year being so different. But we also just, again, thank everybody for working together to support our kids. September 8th is our date for in-person and choice remote learning. So those choices between those two, we have about, I'm going off the top of my head, Linda, so correct me, 7,600, okay, students that will have selected a remote learning. So approximately, 38% or so, 37% of the student body has selected that. And it's interesting how you see that across the school district. It's fairly even in most cases, but we're not going to necessarily start reporting all those numbers out until we actually start with those two choices in mind, because we think that there'll be another push both directions of saying, hey, I want to go back to in person starting the 8th, or there will be some that may want to go and stay in remote that were originally signed up for in person. So we know there's a lot of work going into that. I want to credit Megan's team and everybody that, I'm saying communications, but it's basically everybody in this room, of making sure that we get information out, because we want to be really clear on what people need to do to prepare for whether it be remote or in person, or all the various questions they have. We have a lot of people checking our Remote 2022 website, and I just really am thankful for the work that's been done to put that out there. Every question that gets asked to us We then in turn look at how we need to expand that site so it's grown and it will grow. And so we always encourage people, if they have a question, to ask us through Let's Talk, social media, email, call us, because as we see those things, we expand on them. So we want to make sure that people go there and they feel like they're, that the information they need in which to make decisions is there. So very thankful for, again, everybody. So that's it, sir.
All right, and you see the dates on your calendar. The homecomings have been moved up for Chisholm Trail, the 25th, Boswell the 2nd, and Saginaw the 9th. I also understand the Boswell moved up their senior day to
Yes.
the first game, which I guess would be the 25th. So those are there for your schedule. Seeing that there's no further business to come before this board, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Second, Marilyn.
All right, thank you, Marilyn. Motion by Donna, second by Marilyn. We're adjourned.